You do like that? I do like that.
Yeah,
I think it really explains the cluster.
I really have to think about it differently, doesn't it?
I think it will help teachers as well.
Yeah. And I really love the connection. I love that it just outwardly states the connection between reading and writing, because that's what one of the things I love about looking at craft is thinking about it through the lens of an author and why would they do it. But then also thinking about how can I mimic that or use that to become a better writer myself. And I don't think that kids always do that, so that's one of the reasons I love that so much. Okay.
Carrie, you've got to evaluate evidence for credibility and reliability twice.
Good.
I know we talked about being redundant, but
So last night I was sitting on the bed in the hotel room and I had the so this might have been after an empty bottle. So the charts were on the bed sitting next to me and I was like sitting there and I was watching a movie and doing that. The bottle I left in the bar. So I a couple of times I was like, I think I typed that already. I had to go back and look. I was so mad at myself. So I was like, just focus and get it done so you're not back and forth.
What was the movie?
I'm not telling you.
Okay.
I'll be embarrassed.
Well, it can't be 50 Shades of Grey, wasn't that?
It was How to Train Your Dragon.
Oh, yeah.
I know. It was like FX was just playing it over and over apparently because I watched the end of it. It was coming on again. I'm like, yay! So I just kept watching. Okay, sorry.
I don't really want to pause this for a minute, but in writing nonfiction text up here next to literary text, I'm wondering, is nonfiction really what we want here, or informational? And the reason I say that, right, is you can have literary nonfiction. So are we talking about specifically, are we talking about literary nonfiction text here, or are we talking about informational text? Well, yeah,
We're talking about both.
Yeah, that's the thing. Which is the more
okay,
make that
that's fine then.
Which
So
is
just,
the more inclusive term, I think
In-
nonfiction, or is,
Yeah,
I would,
yeah, because
Yeah.
nonfiction can be informational,
Either or.
it can be literary nonfiction,
Okay.
it can be,
that's all I just wanted to clarify. Perfect.
Okay. So, now what I could do to help us out here, let me do this just to help us out. I'm gonna copy these out
Good idea.
and paste them on top so you can see them side by side, kinda.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
yeah, that's great.
So that the green is what we have in the literary. I'm gonna
I think you live on this glossary.
so instead of one person should have all.
So-
Like it.
okay, so in case you missed it, the green is what is in literary. Because I thought it would be good for us to see them side by side, but that would be the easiest way to see them kind of side by side, right? Okay, so the green was in literary and the black is what is currently in nonfiction. So we have this one, that looks good, I'm gonna take the A's on.
We can take it out then?
No,
Okay.
no,
Really?
we were trying to make them parallel at one
Right.
point, right? We were matching them up, but as I mentioned, I got a little lost in my matching, so I thought you could help me this
Well,
way.
that
Plus,
letter,
I thought the wording, trying to be consistent with wording would be good,
yeah,
so.
right. Well, A and B are gonna work together, and then if you could make C, combine D with it in the new one, in the nonfiction one, determine author's purpose and the main idea.
Okay, so these, oh, what did I do back there? Okay, so those are good.
Do we want purpose or do we want, main idea, or do we want claim? Do we want to
Well,
Not
see,
yet.
look what we did, we had claim down there at the bottom, because we had that conversation, I know,
That's part of that standard.
Is this what you said?
we said main, identify the main idea, yeah. Or the claim, I don't know,
Or, isn't,
because they're not
Is
the
the
same
main
thing,
idea
they're
not
an
the claim?
informational.
Claim
versus main idea.
Well,
Or
an
is it a-
informational, with a text with an informational purpose, it's main idea. A text with
I'm okay
an
with saying
argument
something.
purpose,
We
it's
could say the main idea or the main claim.
or
or the claim.
Could you
That's
put
the main
or?
idea of the claim.
Identify
Could you put or claim?
the main
Yeah.
idea.
That way you're opening it up and you can remove the other one.
I like it.
So
We're
we
gonna
could
have-
take G off, right?
Uh-huh.
Very
Yeah.
constant specific is hyphenated, right, I think,
Yes, it is.
and domain specific too.
Yeah, here we go, getting all picky about punctuation.
You're in the
Different
right
word
page.
good
That's
level.
actually in the 12th grade under conventions and the first standard.
I know,
So,
the hyphen, yeah.
If you,
No, my
if you
twelfth grade
will,
teachers hate that.
or
could
is
you use
that,
that, combine that last sentence, see that last
Oh.
sentence up there on the literary? That
That's
is a combination of
Yeah.
D and E.
D and E, need to go together.
Okay, so how, oh wait, no, this one, okay, I'm sorry, I was looking at that, I'm gonna get rid of that one, cause that's gone. Okay, so
D
D and E, so summarize text,
Just like the other one,
right,
recognizing,
right.
drawing.
okay,
The front of the
Context.
And you could get rid of conclusions in that one. So
Right.
inference is above. and
Right.
It's the same down. So,
okay.
about doing that.
Yeah.
Okay, so what, and then this one is kind of its own thing.
Right.
And how could we get rid of the et cetera? Should we interpret graphics instead of the charts?
Well, are we talking graphs, charts, maps, directions?
Right,
I
anything.
would just say
So
interpret
graphic-
visual text.
Okay,
And honestly, I kinda wanna add that to the literary one. I know I'm
Yeah,
all for
no.
anti them, but there are
no,
illustrated
there are many.
literary texts, where that statement. I
Visual,
think
what did you say, visual text?
Interpret visual,
Elements of the text?
very visual elements of, yeah, I like elements too.
And get rid of about, and not part of conclusions about.
And you may wanna put when applicable in parentheses, since not all texts have visual elements. Sure. But, I think that fits in both, and it certainly lives with that visual literacy piece we talked about in our graduation hour.
So do you see this being the exact same thing word for word in literary?
Yeah, I do,
It
I
could
mean,
be, it
That
certainly could
statement,
be.
you mean,
Interpret visual elements of text and draw conclusions from them?
I do think so.
when applicable.
graphic
Right.
novels, film, I
Right.
mean, there's
Uh,
lots of visual literary
pictures.
texts.
So, okay, so the same word for word can go under literary?
Yeah,
I think
because
so.
you know
I
what,
think it
at
could.
the,
Yes.
at the extreme elementary level, I mean, there are some wonderful books out there where, especially, she's an author, Florence
Paris Berlin.
Although I say
Van
that,
Allsburg.
Van Allsburg.
Van
Does it-
Allsburg, you can have so many interpretations,
words.
yes.
do we think though it lives under comprehend and interpret, or do we think it lives under analyze? Craft,
Well, it
It's
depends.
fun if you're determining how they
I was
impact.
gonna say,
I
that's what I
would
mean,
say
when I'm reading a
illustrated
graphic
drawing,
novel, like analyzing
how they
its
promote
craft
meaning.
impact.
Yeah, but if it's an illustrated Moby Dick,
And if you're
yeah,
doing like-
isn't the same as the author, so
Right.
that will differ.
Well, true, but I mean, I would argue that the illustrator then becomes a co-author.
Right.
Same
Well,
thing, like if you're interpreting a film, right, I would say you're looking at craft when you're looking at cinematography.
Sure.
and-
So,
Sure.
but what I'm
visual
wondering
scene.
is, do those things fall under structure? Under identify, analyze,
No, so like that
and
would be
determine the impact of
including
structure.
including visual elements.
Cause I feel like
I like
there's,
that, and that's a way to
because
consolidate.
then you can start
standards.
talking about the decision to include visuals or not to
Uh-huh.
include them,
That's
not how are they, not interpreting them or comprehending them.
So identify and analyze text structure, including visual elements. Is that what I hear you saying?
Sure,
I would do it at.
that's fine, I'm just putting it there for now, cause I wanna make sure that we're good up here, and then we'll come back down. I wanna put the other ones side by side anyway, so, okay, so are we good here? We have 5,
Yes, now,
Like I
does,
said,
do we
when I-
want to go back to the literary text and add that fifth?
I did,
You did already.
yes, there it is.
Oh,
I would
Press for
argue,
it.
I don't know, but I would argue that maybe not. If we put it in the structural piece, do we need it as a separate standard in the cluster 1?
maybe not.
For the same reason, like
Right, I
plot,
understand.
you know what I mean? Like, if you're analyzing it, then you've already interpreted it, you're comprehending it by nature.
The only difference that I see
in
between
nonfiction.
this and like something about plot is that plot is honestly probably overtaught and visual
Right.
elements are not.
Right.
And so, and I don't know that that's a reason to leave it there, but I feel like it's such a important piece, and as text changes and becomes more digital and it gets manipulated in different ways, the same text over and over, that the visual elements are really important. And it seems like it's a relatively
Right.
new piece, not just, I'm thinking like beyond the, like, here's my text about frogs and here's a picture of a frog.
Right.
You know, like,
But
I'm thinking about beyond that and how it helps give me more information about what I'm reading
Well, then
as
But
what
opposed to
about,
how it functions.
okay, well then, don't text features do the same thing in
well,
nonfiction?
and what I was gonna say, yeah, I mean,
Yes,
I
you're,
don't know that, with the exception of like a graph, and I know we took that language off, like, I don't know that comprehending the visual is what's the problem, it's analyzing the visual.
Or
Like,
Oh,
Bill,
you
you comprehend it.
But even just reading it for basic information, I mean, I know where I'm from, like,
Yeah,
a lot of,
a lot of people don't read graphs.
don't.
correctly.
And that's what I'm
Well,
saying is the
They don't.
difference, like, in a literary text, I don't think you need to comprehend the
oh,
picture.
I see what you're saying.
A graph is some a different type
but
of,
kids and students don't
infographic.
understand that sometimes the bulk of information of what they're trying to get can be
It's on the
found
graph.
in the graph,
Right.
and therefore,
Right.
we
But-
have to get it, it's not
Right.
just, hey, this is a picture of, or just a basic text feature.
Right. I think Nick's point is, does it belong there in literary? So right now we have, right, is we have it in, I just copied and pasted it out of the nonfiction and dumped it into the literary, but maybe it doesn't go there because usually it's not to give you more information in literary
Right.
text, it's usually just an
Right.
It's to
enhancement.
enhance it.
So maybe that really does belong only down the analysis
Right.
part of craft and structure.
that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
That's a good, I was not,
And the
I was
liter-
not seeing that, I'm sorry,
Okay,
now I
so
am though.
Is this the, back to the literature?
So yeah, I'm back on literature, so
Okay.
maybe,
Because
and maybe what you want down here is analyze how the overall structure, including visual elements, contribute to meaning.
That's what I'm saying.
yeah, that word enhancement is,
Okay, so this can come off of the first, okay, I see, that's kind of wonky, but alright, I'll take it. I feel unparalleled, like,
Yeah.
but I can live with it, I can live with it. Okay, so, this is nonfiction again. Are we good with number one?
Again, when you read visual elements, doesn't apply to the text features, is that a visual element? Maybe it is, I don't know, you have to comprehend a lot of stuff, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I would argue the graphic layout of, so yeah, I mean, it's part of visual literacy.
Well, I'm thinking about something that has headings,
Right.
for example,
Yeah.
and how those really they help you understand the meaning because they're giving you the organization of views.
But is that more of, if we put visual elements again with structure in part two, is that getting at what you're saying? Like you're analyzing the,
What do you mean,
The way-
part two, cluster
Cluster
two?
yeah,
Yeah.
so identify and analyze text structure, including visual elements again. I don't know.
You're just gonna keep saying it that way till I type it that way.
Oh.
He's just gonna keep saying it that way till I type it that way, so. So my question is, are we good with number one, or are we not good with number one? Oh, I don't have one question, are we good with number one? That's a yes or no question.
Yeah, I just think for now, and I don't know what I'm gonna put about, but on the glossary, but I still think visual elements is gonna be a problem.
I do too. It needs to be in the glossary.
Because
I don't,
I have questions about what it says.
back to your uneven thing, like I totally get that interpreting a graph is a skill that's difficult and that's different from analyzing like the way a graph fits into the structure of a piece. But I'm also thinking of this, in the sheer number of texts that our kids are reading, like how often is that standard really going to be applicable and does it deserve its own place? That's my only question. I don't feel strongly about it, but
I would say, given the fact that times are slow to change and that we are so responsible for teaching students how to read every single text they ever come into contact with.
Right.
It shows up in their science, it shows up in their social studies, and for the most part, English teachers are still responsible for teaching students how to read text. And that includes those kinds of things, because I know that I have a social studies teacher who just recently emailed me and said, my students don't know how to read, what can I do about that?
So
I'm
here's
like,
my question.
And it's going to impact
Could-
digital literacy,
Could,
because being able to hone in on those text
Could
structures.
we-
And especially with research in English classes, students do a lot of that kind of reading that they, and they need to. We put a segment of Freakonomics in our sophomore for practice, and the teachers wrote questions that misread the chart. So the
Yes.
teachers writing the
Yeah.
questions had not read the chart.
for the nonfiction text though, could we combine it with the summarized text recognizing significant details and drawing logical inferences? Because that's what you're doing when you're interpreting the visual elements of the
Say
graph,
that
right?
again.
So say something like, so the standard right above it, summarized text recognizing significant details and logical inferences.
Okay,
Could we somehow say, again, including visual elements?
Well, you don't wanna put it there because now it seems to modify your language.
Right, I see what you're, like, yes,
Yeah.
we're, but I'm almost, since it's only a when applicable statement anyway, could we combine it with that standard so it's not this separate standard that you may need to teach or you may not, depending on the text?
So you're including the information, the visual elements in the summary, summarized text, including visual elements when applicable?
Well,
Is that what you mean?
right, so like if summarize a graph, right, what is this graph telling me, right? What are the details, what inferences can I make based on this infographic or based on this?
It doesn't
So
modify
instead of
anything
putting
here
it
accurately,
from-
yeah.
no, I know, I just,
I don't
I-
know,
there-
I'm not in love with the way you
No,
worded it,
I just
wondered,
stuck it
is
there so
a
you could
way-
see what we were talking about, so.
Right, but if,
Well, as
I'm
far
gonna
as,
say it's not, it isn't a kind of detail.
Could you summarize text and then in parentheses, including visual elements, recognizing significant details and drawing logical inferences?
Well, that's where you teach what text is, though, right? Because text is.
Well, that's what I'm saying all along, I don't know
Right.
that we need it as, but the reason we want to break it out, right, is because some people won't go to visuals.
What if you just put an and or, summarize text and or visual elements?
Visual elements are the text.
Yeah.
It's not-
And yeah, and
it's
I
one or the other.
understand what you're saying, and I would really, I mean, and maybe, I don't know, is this something that comes in the progression, I don't know. But I'm thinking about, you know, I'm thinking about the CTE aspect of it, so much of the text that students read and has those visual elements, we need to be thinking about that, and I think we have to call it out, I don't think we can bury it in the word text. I would love to be able to bury it, I think everything is text,
Right.
but not everyone thinks the way I do, so I have to, I wanna make sure that we,
Yeah, and I know I've become the ACT girl, but think about the science research
Yes, that's.
and the reading and
And
science.
it's,
And think about the technical
It's
manuals
everywhere.
in vocational schools.
Yeah.
Right.
what it's talking about for
And
ours
digital.
is sorting through distracting information, summarizing information based on one or more detailed graph, drawing conclusions based on those complicated graphs. I mean, it's,
so it kind of
Yeah,
fits
so
in
just
this
because
as
a lot of
always.
the articles, for example, or nonfiction we assign our students to read is more still one line of traditional essay. This needs to be identified separately.
So if we.
Oh, you think it needs to be its own,
Yeah, just leave it as a
It
bullet.
needs to be its own standard.
Not standard,
Yeah.
well, yeah.
I mean, I think,
like it is?
Defer to you here on this one, honestly.
Interpret visual elements, yeah.
I
just-
think
I'm
it's
confused by
hugely
visual
important,
elements.
The
not
word is-
only in,
the wording and
I
the
mean,
word
even
including
in
is
science,
not
like,
grammatically
even
correct
Maridella
either,
was saying,
however.
you know, being able to
So
read
you would
in
summarize
biology,
text of
any kind of
visual
text
elements
graph.
or from visual elements.
If our purpose is to make
Well, I
career
think we're talking about two
decisions,
different things though. I think our side's talking about keeping it with summarize and you guys are maybe talking about interpret.
I think
I think she says
I'm
leave it
favoring
separate, I think
interpret.
I'm okay with
Leave it
that.
separate.
It is
Like
separate
that?
depending
Yeah.
on what you're being told to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, cause we won't just summarize it, that's my issue with putting it with that is we
You
won't
have to
always just
really
summarize
interpret
that.
a graph or a chart
Right,
or a.
right.
Okay, and you know, I can handle it being off kilter, it's okay, it's
Right.
5 in one and 4 in the other and then flip flop, it's okay,
Should a
I'll
song.
deal with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
even a song
Alright,
is a
okay.
text, the word
So
from
moving
the-
on to the second one, let me grab these real quick.
I don't wonder if somebody needs to assign tasks.
You know, that's
Yeah.
a couple,
A
Yeah.
text will flush out,
Right.
text will flush out.
That'll take a page.
okay, Text is all of the following and will change routinely. Okay, so pink is what we have in literary, and then the black is what we have in nonfiction. And the other ones just aren't. I'm gonna just take these letters off. They're not. Oops, sorry. They're not lettered because I just couldn't get there.
Total geeky
So,
English question. Do you think including visual elements should be in parentheses instead of commas? I know either's correct. I really don't care.
and I still
Yeah.
struggle
Well,
with the
I
word
think you just want it consistent, that's all.
Yes.
Right.
So,
Okay.
either. As long
And
as
we
it's
have
consistent.
our verb in all those literary ones is analyze.
Yeah, I know, we got rid of the identify.
Okay, so if I took out, should I just put analyze, take out the term of the impact of?
Yes.
Do we want to use the word bias? I mean, does point of view
Point of
cover
view
that?
cover, it does cover it. It covers it, it's the angle, so it is that person's bias, inherent bias. And I can see why analyze how the narrative point of view contributes to meaning in the literary text. It's not, you're not doing the same thing with the nonfiction text. But don't you wanna do more than determine? I mean,
Right.
think about, and the reason I think I don't know why we put bias in there, but I'm gonna say, you know, when you read a nonfiction piece, you look at, who wrote it and where else that person was published, what it was published in, and I'm thinking about my global warming thing that I had students work with. And, they read, and saw part of the, Al Gore thing, you know,
And then commitment.
yes, and then Will, somebody will help me remember Will's last name, who's the conservative commentator who's published in Newsweek a lot.
Will, George Will.
George Will. And then he wrote an inconvenient price in response to. So you needed, it seems to me, it was important to know who Al Gore is and where he comes from and who George Will. You see what I'm getting at? So that seems to me a little different thing from just point of view, because his point of view is, they both wrote from first person point of view.
Right.
It's
But
really
it was their actual, you know, the context of
you're actually analyzing the text for the point of view instead of just analyzing the point of view. You know, so you're
Exactly.
analyzing the text
Right.
for it as
Yeah.
opposed to.
And we've had that conversation over and over too in these different sessions, you know, not these, but I remember in years past. What's the difference between point of view and viewpoint? And people go, well, what do you mean? Well, I don't know for sure, except point of view literally is first, second, third, and your viewpoint on something often is used to mean that phrase, your attitude toward it, your particular bias, your stance.
Well, I guess I would say the author's point of view is the author's take on the subject.
Mhm.
But the point of view of the text is whether it's
Yeah,
first, second, or third person.
but anyway, I'm just
Yeah.
saying that's gonna be a confusion for it.
Or-
I like bias for the lower grades, from 6th to
Or-
8th. It's very.
You could also,
That could be in a.
It's such a
even for
pejorative
the
word.
teachers to know.
that
Yeah.
point of view you could change in this instance if you wanted to viewpoint. Because is that what you're wanting here?
Yes,
Most,
Analyze the text for author's viewpoint?
And that gets away from just
Yes.
saying it as first person.
Yes.
but there is a viewpoint,
I
there is
got
a
that.
point of view as well,
Yes,
but
I
you're
know.
thinking we're not very interested in that. I mean, I don't care.
Well, it depends on why you're analyzing it. Are you analyzing it based on the author's viewpoint? Or are you trying to figure out the point of view?
It is viewpoint, because with
It
the
is
narrative,
viewpoint.
we are more interested
Then
in
let's
it
change
as a
that.
first
Would
person
cover
narrator.
Let's change
Yeah.
the terminology.
Cover bias.
Do you want me to take out bias then?
we don't need it.
Yeah,
need
you
it.
put viewpoint and that's what, yeah.
Yes,
Period.
that's right.
That
Very
does.
good.
Yeah.
Okay. We have recognized tone, word choice, and syntax. Do you want to change it to analyze how tone, word choice, and syntax contribute to meaning?
Yes.
So that they're
And that contribute to meeting question, I think is still gonna play out on this one too, like, are we
Support
analyzing
the
text
author's
strategy?
claim.
Do we wanna add contributing to meeting to all of these, I guess, is what I'm asking.
I don't think you need it to the second one.
That's great.
I don't know.
A comma after choice.
Thank you.
We're going to analyze,
First one, analyze to.
So analyze rhetorical devices. Rather than identifying. That's what we, to make it consistent.
How they contribute to meeting, right, or no?
Is the last one kind of the same as the first one?
Develop structure.
yes,
I think it's kind of related to the
How it's
viewpoint one
developed.
too.
body structure,
And also to word choice and
right,
I would
also
agree
to
with that.
reasoning or to evidence. All of those things are related.
right, I think that one's been covered.
Okay, you feel like we can take off that last one?
I think so.
That's it.
No, wait, hang on,
Okay.
just a minute, hang on. All right,
Where's
on the
the book?
first one, you're analyzing, analyzing the text to try to figure out the viewpoint. All right, you're analyzing the text,
In a second.
try to figure out the viewpoint.
And
In the bottom
analyze
one,
that structure?
in the bottom one, the very bottom one,
Yeah.
you're trying to analyze the text to determine how the author conveys that viewpoint.
Isn't that the structure?
But that's
Yeah,
related
and
to
the tone
structure,
and the word
tone,
choice.
I
We're
don't
just saying
know,
it's
is it?
redundant.
I think so.
How they
How
That's
they
kind
convey
of a
the
more
viewpoint. Part of one
comprehensive one
and
than
three.
What
includes all those
techniques,
others.
what techniques does the author use to convey his or her viewpoint?
Right,
That's,
structurally, language, and rhetorically, though, right? I mean,
Yeah,
All right.
But well,
what else would you talk about besides those other things
I
that are
don't
out there? Is my question.
you wouldn't,
Would
but
you
my
ever
question
have-
will be, will that come out in the progressions? So when you start thinking about taking that from, 6 through 12, will you get that piece
So-
in there about analyzing how a claim is developed? Like, will that be
Right.
a component or not? And if it's not, then it probably needs to stay if we feel strongly about
yeah,
looking at the claim. That would be my only,
Well,
I'm
I
good with-
guess
how do
if I
they,
were gonna leave it, I'd put it first. Because it seems like almost everything else.
It almost seems like a description though of the cluster, and the same is true of fiction, right? Like the whole point of doing all of those things is to
yes.
analyze how the author got their idea across.
Right, and it's not just a claim, because it could be your
Right,
main
because it could be
point,
a
right?
main
Yes.
idea or
Yeah.
a narrative.
Yeah,
right?
I just know that, it felt like yesterday that we stuck to that claim word so much because it's such a
Okay.
new way of thinking about text for us.
Right.
But it is, and I really do like argument, and that I feel like it is, as a writer and as a speaker, it's a better way to approach everything because you're always learning about both sides. And we've had students who engage in research for arguments for the sake of argument, and then change their viewpoint because of what they've learned. So I feel like that's much better than just a persuasive, here's how I feel about it kind of thing. But so that's why I feel like that claim keeps coming up because we're not as comfortable with it as.
Do we wanna add it to the analyze text for author's viewpoint and how that claim is developed? Claim or idea is developed? I mean, I know they are two separate
Yeah,
but
well,
related
but
things.
but they still go together.
we do,
Right.
Here's the viewpoint and here's how the author conveys that viewpoint.
Or you could combine it with delineate and evaluate reasoning,
Yeah.
how the author's claim is developed.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how to put them together.
We do have claim or
without making
ideas.
it-
We have both of them in there.
It is sort of, you're right though, I mean, I think that's part of delineating and evaluating.
The reasoning is to say how the claim is developed.
I still think that is a more comprehensive, that bullet comprehends a bunch of things, to me.
It
So
is.
I-
So should it be first?
Well, that's what,
At the
that's
very
what
least, it
Nancy
should be
said.
first, but
Whether it's in the same category is another question.
it seems wrong for it to have the same status in the hierarchy as all the other points.
Yes,
That are so
I
much
hear
more
what you're saying.
specific.
I would go with the
Well-
author's viewpoint because I mean it's what is establishing a viewpoint and then
how is their claim or idea
Developed.
developed?
If you go back to cluster one, I see what she's saying, look at cluster one on this one.
Well, author's
Okay.
purpose and main idea are plain.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering if it, see,
Yeah.
belongs up there.
Like craft and structure,
But you have to have that, you have to have this to know how it's happening.
Right.
Yeah,
So you're analyzing it.
right.
And I think you know, analyzing how a claim or idea is developed is just one, no, it's not, it's the whole purpose of looking at craft.
Uh-huh.
It's almost
Yes.
the umbrella.
I
It's the
really
whole
think
purpose of
it's-
looking at craft and structures, determine how is it developed,
Yeah,
how,
hierarchically, it is in a different category.
It's just, it's.
so, does it come off?
So,
Well,
I think that's what you're doing when you're approaching the text as
Oh,
a
well,
writer,
so
right?
Elizabeth, your thing is the author's viewpoint really is, comprehends
That's, yeah, what is it, and then,
the whole,
How does
the
it
whole
happen?
thing, yeah, this
Right.
person is presenting this claim or view, and then,
in this manner.
Yeah.
I mean, either it's redundant or it's.
right.
I see what you're
Or
saying.
it
Yeah.
goes together.
Or both. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I see
agree
what
with
you're
you.
saying.
It depends upon how apparent the author's viewpoint is. If it's extremely apparent, you're identifying it. If the text is extremely concrete, I mean, not concrete, but
Complex.
complex, sometimes you have to analyze the text for the viewpoint.
but the way it's developed is the structure, right?
Right, so that's why we
That's
have to
still
analyze
It
how it
depends
is.
upon how apparent the viewpoint is.
It does, but I mean, it's still a different thing.
It
Right.
is. No, I agree. Why don't we take it out, because it really is covered in all those other individual
Okay, so we're taking it out? Is that what I heard?
And then we'll say,
Oh, wait, where'd that go? If you take it out, could you just on that second bullet and put, and determine how it is developed? Or
Yeah, I would support that.
if you just, at the second bullet, you just put, and determine how it is developed. Or conveyed, however you wanna say it.
developed is more important.
Yeah, you can eliminate determine. Analyze text for author's viewpoint and how it is developed.
So we're saying claim
Right.
and viewpoint are the same?
Saying what?
We're saying claim and viewpoint are the same?
No, not exactly.
Developed.
Because sometimes you don't have claim.
Oh.
Because we moved the
Right, we took the word claim.
claim to here.
I would say their claim is part of their viewpoint, though, right?
Right.
Or the idea
Only
they're
if
trying to
making a
convey?
claim,
Did you
right?
put the
Well,
word
the claim is more specific to a
Nick,
particular
Right.
Did you put the word claim?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
It's more like claim than.
Alright, and did you put the word viewpoint?
Did.
I'm
Yes.
trying to type all of these while you're writing.
If
Okay,
we're
so-
using those simultaneous, interchangeably, we need to make note of that.
I don't
No,
think
it's
we
not
are.
the same.
I think we're just not specifically saying the word claim anymore in that standard,
In the progression, would you see that coming up then?
potentially.
That you're gonna, that the word claim would appear in the progression then?
When you get into writing, I'm
It just
actually.
depends on if it's an argumentative text or not. That's where I say it
Right,
just gets
right.
impossible to start trying to
Not
talk
all will
about
have
the
it.
variety of
Right.
genre. It's like,
Right, I
if
agree
it's an
with you.
argumentative text, it's a claim. If it's not, it's not. But that's what.
Okay. Are we good with, I'm sorry, are we good with cluster two?
Hold on a sec. Word choice. Is there, and if there's not, that's okay. Is there a way to combine the delineate and evaluate standards? Delineate and evaluate reasoning is sound, relevant, valid, and logical, and evaluate evidence for credibility and reliability. I mean, I know they're saying
Yeah,
somewhat different things, but I
yeah.
also know that it goes together.
I see those as pretty different. Because evaluating evidence that you're going to, either if from the writing angle, put into, and this is approaching text as writer, yeah. evaluating evidence for credibility and reliability is pretty different from looking at your reasoning and determining whether or not the logic is.
But I guess I'm questioning, how would you evaluate their if they're using evidence, how would you evaluate the reasoning without looking at the evidence that they're using?
I didn't say that.
I know you
just
didn't.
said they're two
but I
different
just- yeah.
things.
I could see how you,
I wasn't
I
contending.
guess what I'm saying is, I could see how you could evaluate, I could see how you
I've
could
read
evaluate
plenty of
reasoning
students.
without evidence, but I don't see how you could evaluate evidence without evaluating reasoning as like part of it.
Oh, I do.
Oh.
I think
Maybe
that
I'm
is.
not saying that either, right?
Well, I think you can
So
look
you're
at
saying, like-
evidence and you can, just like my thing about George Wells, and,
Right.
you know, how much do you trust this guy? What's his background? What is the ethos thing? What
I
is
see what you're
his
saying.
authority
So you're
for
viewing that,
saying
that
this?
really is looking at, here's an article that was written, you're evaluating the credibility of their sources, not so much their arguments.
I've read plenty of students' papers where they cite from the evidence they have found, and then they completely mess up the
What it really
interpretation and
means.
reasoning.
Right, well, and that's why on the writing side of things, that makes more sense to me, but I don't know that I've ever, and maybe I should, I don't know that I've ever asked a kid to evaluate the sources.
Oh, I
It's-
have.
I guess I have.
And they
Now
ask
that
it
I
on the
say
AP line exam.
Yeah.
It's on there.
Do you need the word,
Wikipedia.
Yeah.
do you need delineate on the front of that? I mean, can't you just take off delineate and?
Well,
Aren't you
I
just
guess,
evaluating?
weren't we thinking of that being sort of like, here is the reasoning that the writer
Yes.
used, and then evaluating whether that reasoning was logical
Yeah.
or sound
All
or
right.
relevant.
But I
So-
think, oh, go ahead,
So
Janet.
maybe it's two different steps.
Yeah, well, the first one, you're having them give the reasoning, then your second one, you're having them evaluate that
Right.
reasoning.
So do we wanna do the same thing here as we've done with the analyze, where we had determine and analyze or identify and analyze, and we just say evaluate?
Well, if
Or
you put
just-
delineate
Well, you
reasoning,
would have to delineate it in order.
If-
to-
That's what I mean.
That's what
So
if
we
you
just
put
did it.
delineate reasoning, and then you put and evaluate for da 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 da. You
I
have,
think just evaluate reasoning is sound
That's probably
relevant.
You have to
Right.
delineate.
you have to
Yeah.
delineate. There you go, because they're gonna have to give it if they're gonna evaluate.
Right.
How do you feel about cluster 2?
And is it evaluating, I mean, maybe that's implied, evaluating author's reasoning, evaluating
We can
author's
tell you're
evidence.
married to an attorney.
Yeah. That comes through. It's finally rubbed off on me.
Sorry, I had to say it.
It's okay.
So sorry.
It's
You know,
fun
I
enough.
did,
I think author's reasoning would be an important thing, because we
Yeah.
say author's viewpoint.
Okay,
And then I really maybe would wanna say, evaluate an author's reasoning for soundness, relevance, validity, and logic, but maybe maybe
I know, I'm
that's too-
following it, but I just,
No, that's-
I thought
that's
about
right.
the same thing.
It should be,
Or is that too
So,
it should be for.
semantic?
Well, it makes it longer for soundness, relevance,
Oh,
validity,
okay.
and logic.
Yeah,
But
okay,
It
yeah,
works,
it's
do
the
that
same
if you
thing.
want.
do we
Does soundness need to be in
and
there?
authors at the second
Or
one?
you could just
Say
say
just
sound.
say relevance, validity, and
Soundness
logic?
does sound.
I don't wanna define
Yeah.
soundness,
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I
relevance,
do need to put
validity,
relevance, validity, and
Yeah.
logic.
yeah,
am I getting rid of sound?
yeah,
Thank you. Like that in there.
yeah, relevance, validity, and logic.
It's kind of the same thing as
It
validity.
is.
Nice job, wordsmiths. Okay, so are we okay on number 2? I almost hesitate to ask. On cluster 2, are we good?
You gotta say, you can pull it. Is it evaluate the
Ah!
evidence and author uses for credibility and reliability,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Cause that's what, that confused me at first, I didn't realize that's what we meant by that standard. Do we need reliability, or can we just say for credibility?
No, I think it's both. Yeah, the credibility issue is, what is this person's authority to say this,
Right.
and then checking out the actual reliability, because this is informational.
Okay. Credibility and reliability makes sense.
Yes.
May I ask?
Should I add at the end, analyze rhetorical devices, rhetorical features an author uses?
Devices commerce.
Now I'm just,
In the
No.
text.
now I'm just being
Well,
disruptive and
that's-
argumentative.
To go back to the, if we look at the literary text though, do
What were
we
you
need to
gonna
add
ask?
the how, I don't know, or do we need
What
to
do I
take the
have?
how out? to
The impact of those devices.
Yes.
Right,
Yes, you need,
How the
There's a
rhetorical
lot.
Right,
devices
how.
and rhetorical features.
I was really
impact
kidding,
these
I know you were.
honestly.
right,
but
I was just being disruptive.
I really want as much parallelism between the literary standards and the nonfiction standards.
the word
as we
how
can.
needs to be in the bottom ones. On that last one.
Analyze
It
how.
also needs to be on the first one too,
Whoa,
Wow.
I don't really know what I just did there, I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay, now what am I doing with this one? I'm really sorry I said something.
Just so, if you look up at the pink, right? Make it look like the
Devices
pink.
contribute to
Which-
meaning.
Analyze how rhetorical
Analyze
devices
how.
and rhetorical features contribute to meaning.
So do you need rhetorical device up there? Yep.
Or, on both of them, if we wanna really emphasize the cluster, analyze how an author uses on all of these things. Analyze how the author uses structure.
Now just get rid of the second rhetorical. Analyze how rhetorical devices and
You can
features
choose.
contribute.
Yes.
Getting rid of the pink. Pink is gone.
I put it next to literary devices.
I feel really good about what we have there.
We've got the et cetera. Now you're talking about cluster.
Okay, yeah, but let me grab these from cluster 3 over here real quick, just to make sure that,
And we changed the name of cluster three too, right?
oh, we did synthesize ideas from multiple text. Let me change that too. Okay. Just those 3. Yes.
Would the evaluate an author's evidence actually go down here? Cause like to evaluate it, wouldn't you have to be looking at it as a multiple text? As a text outside of, so like, let me try to break this down a little bit. So if I'm looking, like you said, the George Will article, and he's pulling from source A, source B, source C, I don't really know what source A, source B, source C says unless I look at source A, source B, source C, right?
Yeah.
Like, I can't really evaluate his evidence unless I look at that evidence. I can evaluate his, and that's what I was trying to say.
Evaluate the reliability of the
Doesn't necessarily have to come from the text. I mean, if you've got a journalist that's writing on what's going on over
Right.
in Iraq right now.
That's the point I'm making. So should it really be under synthesized ideas from multiple texts? Maybe not.
No,
Okay.
Because you're
no,
only
it's
looking
this
at one
author's
text.
evidence, he's gotten it or she's
Right.
gotten it.
Is from one
multiple
text.
You're evaluating the evidence.
But how are you
No.
evaluating his evidence or her evidence without looking at
At
that
the-
evidence?
But
Well,
you're
you
only
can't.
looking at one text though. I mean,
Exactly.
I'm gonna look at this evidence right here in one textbook
Right.
and I'm gonna evaluate that.
How? Without
Well,
looking at
that's
that
irrelevant.
evidence.
It's still
Author-
presented in one
exactly.
text.
It's
I don't think you need
It's
it
still
every
presented
text
in
to
one
do
text.
That's right.
Not always, no. That would be a universal thing, and I don't.
Well, but then aren't you? okay.
Well, if it's a text with a reference list,
It's not the author's personal evidence. I mean, the author used the evidence, integrated it into.
But then aren't you evaluating the reasoning?
Well, that's a different one. That's the one in front of it.
Right. That's what I'm.
Well, you're talking about someone going and consulting resources to
Yes.
determine relevance or credibility or reliability or whatever that is.
Right.
Right.
I'm just curious how we would evaluate an author's evidence for credibility and reliability without looking at other sources from the text itself.
Well, you probably wouldn't.
Which is why I'm asking, does that particular standard make more sense under synthesized ideas from multiple texts?
No, because
No.
it's already
Okay.
synthesized for you in
Yeah,
the text.
exactly.
Someone's already synthesized the
different-
information in the text.
Yeah, cause I guess really what the difference is here is I'm taking all that information and pulling it all together and doing something with it
Doing
on
it
my
yourself.
own, as opposed to making judgment calls about what the authors
What somebody
used.
else-
You're thinking you need to prove what the author said someone else said.
That's what I think we're asking them to
For
do
value.
earlier, and I don't know how you do that by just looking at what the author says.
You don't, but
You don't.
again, I think it would be very confusing to
Okay.
somebody reading these to think of that as multiple texts. I don't think
that
anybody here
makes
is
more
thinking of
sense.
it
Keep
that
in
way.
mind, if we're having this conversation right now about it, and
Right.
we're in the room and we understand what's going on, maybe having somebody look at this cold, having never seen it before, going, yeah,
Right.
Okay.
Okay. So I take off the first bullet, right? Because that's, should I change this from ideas to information? We have information down here.
I think it's okay as ideas.
Okay. Just asking. So that's gone. So now we have two. And I need to get rid of the et cetera, so something's not there. I can probably just say such as, right? Such as implies that there's more.
And even though we have to, I think we probably really want all three of them, don't we? We didn't put down the relationships among texts that address similar themes or topics, but I think that would be very important in nonfiction.
Yes,
I would agree. This one here.
I honestly, I think the three we have are still.
yes, really, they are.
And we want this to be historical.
Hey, I'm not sure I understand the word historical in that first bullet there. Text in different formats and media such as.
I don't know if I do either. And I wrote it. I wrote it down. You know, we might have been. I don't know. Historical documents is what we were thinking of.
Yes, yes.
I think you could just do what we did on the first one, and we need to, in the glossary, we can spell that out, but I think just.
You think we can just spell it out in the glossary, the whole thing?
I think, what are examples?
I don't know why we spelled it out here.
Right.
Oh, well, we have genres / media and literary,
Right, but.
but we don't probably need that if we're putting media. We have formats and media. That should be it,
because
right?
it's- Yeah,
That should
it's
take
not
care of
about
it.
genre.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we have in forms of text here. Check in forms.
yeah, I like that.
Somewhere, media.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, if anyone likes yellow starbursts, we have a number of them. There's yellow here on the
I do
table.
like yellow starburst.
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
I like the red.
Flagrantly.
So that takes care of reading nonfiction.
Red and blue.
Do you want to go to writing?
Save that.
Do you like yellow?
It's automatically saved. All changes saved.
And
Writing
so,
next?
just so I'm clear, we have,
Yeah.
were there three more nonfiction reading standards and literary standards?
Yes.
There was the
Three more.
interpret visual elements, that was something we did
Yeah.
in literary, and then the two evaluates.
The two
on possibility
evaluates.
too, right? Although, well, no, one of those though was plot and
We have
setting,
1, 2,
so
3,
there's really
4,
just two more
5.
standards.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's only two more.
Okay.
Can I just say something? I mean, this is not off topic, but it kind of, I'm a big picture thinker. And knowing what we're doing here, knowing that eventually tests are gonna have to come from this potentially. We need to be really specific so that it makes their job easier, because nothing is more frustrating than having your standards, having your tests, kids take the tests, and then going back and not being able to figure out what's wrong, what's not being addressed, what's weak. And I think, for me, the biggest problem with the GLEs, you could see it on one test item. Oh, they scored 93% item 18, but on item number 36, they scored 33%.
Okay, but I think that has to do with text complexity. Reading one graph is not what graph? No. It's not reading the second graph. You know what I mean? I'm not sure I know exactly what you're saying.
I'm just
We've
saying,
gone over and over that.
I'm just saying, making sure that as we keep moving forward, that we are very clear and specific, so that it makes it easier for them to know what we're talking about, so that it does match up, so we don't look at it later on and go,
Yeah.
what? That's
Yeah.
not what we wanted.
Because we had a whole bunch of items under read information,
Right.
understand informational text, and
And
it's
you
like,
never
well, yeah,
know.
that's all kind of stuff.
And you never knew which one it was. Were
Yeah, I
they good
know
at
what
this,
you
or
mean.
were they good at this? And then there was no way to go back and remediate that or fix it.
We have to remember that these are just the clusters.
Right.
These really aren't even the standards.
No.
Right.
So we're gonna get very specific in the standards.
Yes.
So we have to keep that in
Isn't
mind.
that a DOK?
I mean, really, when you look at a group.
That's what I mean, it's a matter of complexity.
Yeah.
level.
Right.
A level one question, they all.
Right. It is.
Right, right.
And then a three.
Absolutely.
So, even though these are kind of broad and general, we're gonna define it as we go through the grades.
And it'll have to be very specific to
Right.
that grade level for that DOK, so that going back later.
But,
So are we going on to writing now?
I think we are.
I know.
We could do the other, we could say it five, or we could do it. I think speaking, listening, and language are gonna be.
But if it's gonna, but we might be more brain dead by the
That's
end
what
of
I'm
the day.
thinking too, though, yeah, that makes sense.
Which is where we were yesterday.
Exactly.
Carrie, what are
Let's
you,
do it.
is this what you're gonna take to the school board?
That's what we have to decide.
Yeah, so.
I mean, I think if
why don't
it's
we
done, I would
stop
love to give it to
here
them.
And start working on that little project.
That's what we're working on, I think, right? Like this.
Well, I'd like to be able to submit all of this to them,
Yeah.
all
Including
areas.
writing?
Is there a
Yeah,
template or something? we
Ideally,
might
I'd like to
use?
get them all
Yeah.
worked out today.
What's
We have
it
to talk
like?
about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought we would stop. I think that speaking, listening, and the language should go pretty quickly. The writing is the one I'm most
Yeah.
concerned about.
Get it out of the way.
We have to say, we have to provide a statement for what our objective is, specific to each work group, which is bizarre to me, because I think we all have the same objective.
That's easy.
A description of our organization, so, chair, vice chair, et cetera, so we don't have that. We just,
Say that again, what?
it says description of our work group organization, chair, vice chair, et cetera, so we don't have that, we just have the liaison, and that's it, so that's pretty easy. Progress report describing consensus of the work group regarding what has been accomplished and the remaining issues to be addressed. This could be a consensus estimate of, I don't even know what the sentence says. This could be include a consensus estimate of percent completion. I just think we go, here's what we have done, and here's where we're going.
Yeah, we
Like,
can't
that's
give
what,
it
a percent
Because
completion.
it could end up, we could end up changing something later on if it didn't
No,
work
no,
out.
Well, I don't know
because we don't know what detail we're gonna give it each grade.
Well, I don't even know how to divide it up into percentages anyway. Oh, word, 37% of the way through.
Right.
Identification of obstacles to overcome or tools, information required to assure success.
More candy?
More hours in the day?
So, I mean, I feel like that's,
Compensation for time off.
yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess I could include that on
I
there.
wish you would include
Yeah.
that in the report.
But I thought we would draft that
Just
together,
parking.
you know, and then,
Yeah.
I think the
Yes.
very
Well-
first day, the guy that came in did tell us that that was an oversight on the part, and
Yeah.
what.
in
but
January.
We can't really
By
do
next
that.
July.
Jury duty.
Yeah.
We're supposed to look at it in
$6.
January.
And then
Jury duty.
And then the last item is any other important issues, important to the particular work group. So that's that. So I figured if we could get through these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
5 things, we could say, here's the work we've done. We have looked at, we identified our graduate outcomes that we want for our graduates. We have looked at, I can't remember, like 4 sets of state standards to determine what we like about them, what we don't like about them. We identify what we want our standards to have and what we don't want our standards to have. We then started brainstorming strands and clusters for a new set of standards, and here it is in draft form. The end. And that's I think that's what we've done to this point. So.
we've got a lot done too.
And you could
Well,
always
I feel
say,
pretty good about what
we've
we've done.
tentatively
Free time as much
identified
as
standards and clusters,
Yeah.
you know.
Okay. So I don't think that'll take us too long to fill out, do you? And I'd like to have these done because we could submit these to them.
Another good question, that I think needs to be put in here, that while considering the curriculum.
Oh.
alignment,
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's gonna be a deal breaker.
Jana she wrote down for me that we are looking at the Missouri Department of Higher Education Curriculum Alignment Initiative, and the Career Ready Practices, Career Technical Education Standards. So she wrote that down so we can
Yeah, I
include
think
that
it's
in there.
important for the board to know.
No, I think that's a really good point,
that we're
yeah.
Considering that and working with that tool.
Yeah, I think that's really good. So, and I wrote that down, so, or Jana wrote it down and gave it to me, and I'm gonna do something with it. Put it in the template apparently.
So, are we gonna write all that you just read off, we're gonna work on that right now?
Well, no, I thought we would finish this first, and then we would do that part. Cause I'd like to be able to say this is what we're done with.
And then we'll maybe email that out to all of us, we can copy of it. There you go.
I keep getting started.
Okay. So here's writing.
Mine have been all read.
It is, you were right. Oh my gosh, you're all right. That's funny.
Let's just let it rain.
Okay, so
Bless you. All the starters are good.
First start.
At least I didn't get a
Wait,
point.
does it matter
Well, I
what
thought
order
about
we
it.
have?
I was gonna say,
the
formulate
questions?
open-ended questions probably should come first. Oh,
That's what I
you're
was
just-
gonna say, we probably wanna
you
put
want-
the research ones in order of the research project.
Yes.
And so conduct short and sustained research projects and then formulate open-ended questions.
Alright. If we put short and sustained research, can we put it in the title and do away with the standard? Instead of just research,
Yes.
That makes sense.
can we just put up there short?
Just put it up there after research colon and then conduct short and sustained research.
Well,
And just get rid of the standard,
I like the
then-
idea of getting rid of the standard. I don't know that we want this cluster title to be like 18 words long.
well, can you just put it,
Could you just say short
research?
and sustained research?
Yeah,
Well, I'll say I don't like the word project on there because then it indicates that this whole cluster is just about doing
Yeah,
research
get rid of
projects.
You could even just short and sustained
So-
research.
right up on the top. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, that takes care of that.
Now.
Because you really wouldn't have much of a progression of that one anyway, because it's probably gonna be the same.
You
It's
do
just,
it.
it's just really about how much longer it gets, the older they get, right? So, okay.
Formulate the
Open-ended.
questions there.
Yeah.
Alright, that's not good. Get the whole thing. Okay.
Now,
I'm gonna ask a question that's totally not on the topic. Was everyone able to gain access to the folder that I shared through Google Drive?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not, but I'll do
You're
it.
not,
I didn't,
You mean like that
you
stuff?
weren't
those
able to
6
gain access to it?
yes, yes.
So, okay, so would it be better if I downloaded those documents and emailed them to you directly?
That would be helpful.
Okay.
Our school is going through a complete revision on our tech stuff, and all of our emails at school are on Gmail, but we can't access them. We went 2 days.
You can't access it from the outside, we can't either, yeah. So I use, and the only reason I did, well, I wanted to use Google Drive because I figured that way it's always the most up-to-date version, which is something that I worry about, but, and then I emailed you guys from my personal Gmail because it's easier to create an address list there than it was through my school email. So it's just much easier to create a group, so I will just download them and the reason I was asking was I thought, these are all already in that folder, and then I thought we would just create that template in that folder, so you have, everything's always there. So just stay on me if you don't get a downloaded version, but I'll download them as like a Word document and email them to you. Okay, all right, so, sorry, I totally derailed us, but I wanted to make sure I asked the question. Okay, back to, where are we now?
Well, then we've got locate critical sources, that's what you do after you
And gather
How is
relevant
that different
information.
from- yeah.
Are we,
Those two go together.
Are we going to try to keep consistent with what we did before, where we had reading fiction texts, student will read and comprehend a
Yeah,
variety
we're gonna
of-
need something.
Out
They-
for writing.
South Carolina, which is where I think Casey got the other ones. For research, it lists. The writing one is, the student will write for a variety of purposes and audiences, and the research is, the student will access and use information from a variety of sources.
So do you wanna combine those two statements together even, like students will
Access and
access
use
and use
information
from a variety of sources to write for a variety of purposes and audiences.
I'm super impressed with the typing stuff.
You don't make very many mistakes.
I did too.
I make a jillion.
So for a living, this is what I do.
It's like,
This, I, like,
Run
this
meetings and
exact way, this is what happens. I have conversation and I project it and I type it, so this is,
I do it in front of the kids.
that's how it goes. So I used to be very, very,
I can do it when I'm typing, but if I get something to edit, they can do it.
Yeah.
How about
It's
making
You know?
That's fine.
Well, access
If it's on the
to
smartboard,
information,
they can find it.
from various sources.
So the, sure.
Cut out in
Varied
order
purposes or variety of purposes.
to write for varying purposes.
For varied purposes.
Yeah.
It's just so weird. As a reading teacher.
You know what you can, no, I'm
feels very,
too short.
no, I'm really okay with it where it is.
not like
Alright,
it's
gather information would be next, right? Is that what it is or
Yeah,
what?
the gather relevant information, says
Okay.
that. How about locate relevant, credible and reliable
Multiple,
sources?
I think worse.
Yeah, you need relevant in there, absolutely.
But then the rest, that other line can go gather relevant information.
Actually, yeah, from.
So you can get rid of,
Or
and we can
multiple
actually
sources.
put the site sources and
Or
avoid
multiple
plagiarism
sources.
together too.
Multiple
Yes.
sources.
Yes,
So from multiple,
yes,
Multiple sources to write for various purposes.
yes,
Love
there
it.
you go.
Love them.
Now, do you need to put synthesize information in there?
Not,
No,
that's
that's
process.
writing
Okay.
process.
Got it.
Yes.
Site sources and avoid plagiarism. Semicolon.
I couldn't do it.
Right.
avoid plagiarism by citing
Yes.
sources.
Use a standard documentation system to avoid plagiarism. But
There
I
you
would-
go.
Yeah,
Yes.
An app for that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Citation system, documentation system.
the citation makes more sense, that's fine.
I don't, I would say citation, I think that's more, I mean, I'll add it to our words, but
Our towns always call it documentation.
Okay, we got that down to 3.
Now, what does that involve exactly?
What?
Standard citations.
Use
like
MLA,
or
APA,
AFM.
Chicago,
Oh,
there are a lot of
okay.
different choices.
Or
but-
AP.
I wasn't
Yeah.
aware of one of those.
The Dannett School of Citation.
Yes.
Yeah,
As long
or,
as
you
it's
know, or
consistent.
depending upon what they're doing, it could just be a
Yeah.
quick
That's
bibliography,
what I
like,
mean,
you
as
know,
long as you're consistent.
because it may, yeah, so,
Standard.
okay, so depending on what.
Learn to follow what's.
Okay.
in other words.
Here's
Uh-oh.
tricky one.
Word document.
Treasure Yeah, right click there. Oh, there it goes.
Oh, I think I did go back.
Alright, so,
This is your baby.
No, my baby's grammar.
That was awesome for that. I think I have to go to the restroom. Okay,
This one's got a lot of
We have
consolidating to do.
we have got to consolidate some of
but
this.
could we start out by saying at least use a writing process to,
Alright,
and then da-da-da-da-da.
Short and sustained research.
do we need, we can hit this 100 different places. Identify audience and purpose of writing. Have we already done that in the overall? I mean, we mentioned purpose
Well,
and
we do,
audience.
yeah, we do.
Do we need to restate it or? I personally don't think we do.
And
So
then
it's-
we have variety of forms for variety of purposes.
Right.
List. that's
Well,
kind of where we have.
Okay, so let me just ask, would you articulate that differently in a progression at all, or not?
Audience and purpose.
What, not no, but types, forms or purposes.
I personally wouldn't.
That's the only reason I'm asking.
Yeah, that's a good question.
The audiences and purpose thing, I don't think changes. It's always
Well,
the same kinds of audiences and purposes.
you can combine those bullets, like you could say, use a writing process to produce, writing in various forms for a variety of da-da-da-da-da. So if we start by combining bullets,
Right.
I think that's the easiest.
What
Can we
call
combine?
Okay, just call that heading using a writing process or something. For right now, I don't really, but I mean, to make it parallel with short and sustained research, I would like it to be called use a writing process, but then it doesn't match the other indicators. And then we could.
Right.
You wanted to say use the writing process.
I would say a writing
Use-
process. I do not like the, because then people think
Sure.
this is the writing process, and you have to use it.
I don't like short and sustained for some reason.
I bet you
Well,
don't
it's
like it
because-
because it sounds like they're together.
And we
It
don't
doesn't
have a
sound
verb.
both
The
short
short
and
and
sustained.
it just, it's not.
Could we say both short and sustained? Then that would
Because it does,
make the distinction.
yes, there's
And
not a
or.
distinction.
Yeah, and
Put a
or,
slash,
you could
short
do
slash
short and
sustained
or
research.
sustained.
No,
You know?
the short
Couldn't you do
sustained.
and or?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you really do need to leave that short in there, because so many teachers say, now I'm doing my research unit.
And it's
Because
25
I-
pages.
Yeah.
Couldn't we do short and
Yeah.
or?
Yeah.
Sustained.
I think they'll be like, short and sustained, how in the world?
Short
do
and
you-
They don't
Yeah,
do it
you're
right.
right.
No,
Mary.
it
Sustained,
sounds
I think
combined.
long.
I agree, I have a problem with it.
I don't know what to do to fix that.
I don't think I'd put it in order. No.
Short and long.
No.
Could you do research
That
comma?
was really
I
funny.
know you were, I had to laugh.
Short or extensive.
Okay.
That's funny. Extended.
Short
That's
or extended.
Extensive, there you go.
Short or
Slash,
extended.
I like to
Yeah.
slash, but
Extended.
short
yeah,
or
you-
extensive.
Or extended.
Right,
I don't know where the four came from.
Yeah.
Types of research, extended or extensive.
I like that.
short or extended, you don't do it both at the same time.
So why do we have a verb for use a writing process, but not a verb for short?
Well, that's why I said using, is
Well,
what would
could
make
we
it
could say conduct
make it a
short or
gerund.
extended
Good reason for
There
reading.
you go.
They're all verbs.
Conduct,
short or
analyze.
extended research.
Synthesize.
Yeah.
Writing.
I like that, conduct short or extended, now it
Right.
makes a distinction, you are,
Yeah, there we go.
Okay,
there it is.
are we good with the titles now?
We're avoiding the.
I know, you guys are totally avoiding the meat of it all.
Well, you can get rid
Let's-
of writing
Let's
process.
wordsmith that,
All right, let's start clustering
Oh,
those,
yes.
see if we can put them together.
okay, got rid of writing process. Now, again, my question before was this.
Should go first.
Up in the top, we say they will use and access information to write for varied purposes and audiences. And I'm really good about I'm good with getting rid of audience, because it's already up there. But what about purposes?
That's up there
I
too.
know we debated this.
I know, because it's up there. So my question is, my question before was, and then we kind of decided that we were gonna avoid it and talk about titles again. So, and I'm just trying to be
Oh, we have
fun,
audience
okay?
and
So I'm not
purpose
trying to
again.
hurt anybody's feelings.
Yeah, we have that.
What I was wondering is that something that you get more specific with through a progression or not? And when you do get more specific through a progression, now all of a sudden you're identifying what you want students producing as opposed to leaving it open-ended, right? So that's
Yeah.
problematic, but
Right.
should it be, so I don't know the answer to that question.
I personally feel that's not what state standards should do. I think individual districts or individual teachers should spell out like the purposes they want the kids writing for. I don't think the standards should say in 6th grade, you write a resume, in 7th grade, you write an editorial.
Well, those come under text types anyway, which is a different,
And-
Right,
yeah,
But
they're
you're
not
thinking
even.
If we get too narrow here,
different types.
right, over the course of but again, that's where a district comes in and says,
Right.
how are we gonna scope and sequence
And we would put
this
those in the
as opposed
glossary?
to, right,
Or a such as statement, when you get to the individual grade levels, that it may apply to.
Okay.
You could just print, such as, whatever, and then they could pick and choose.
Well,
I would prefer the phrase including but not limited to.
That would work.
Because I'm afraid that such as will be
Yes,
viewed as the
yes.
prescriptive list.
Well, it is currently, I think.
And the thing
What the
we have to
standards are now.
remember, if we don't keep these broad enough, we're not gonna allow for enough diversity between the
Exactly.
grade levels.
Right.
If we get too narrow here, we can't have 5 different levels of diversity.
So then my question is, do I get rid of this right here?
I think so, as long as we said.
Or-
like
or
we
we
said,
need
we
a
capture
placeholder
that
for a
later
general
in
s-
the-
But you could put something general there.
Multiple sources.
But it's already general up at the top is my question.
Right,
Alright.
it's in the title.
But remember, we've gotta get them in the,
Yeah, I think
So between there, between it being in the top description and in the glossary about types and purposes of writing, which then comes down below, don't forget.
Now, see,
Right.
this
What
is
we
more
don't
goes
mention-
with the types, that one that's here, it's
Mhm.
not about a process that
Okay.
you use.
We don't mention variety of forms, though, the different types.
You're right, we don't.
And that probably,
But does a
maybe
form
that
come under
needs
genre
to
and
be,
type?
See, I think it does,
Oh.
and that's where we get to that debate on the writing on demand thing, both of
Right.
those, it seemed to me, go in a different.
Right.
alright, if we're doing the writing process, why don't we just go through and list the bullets that go underneath the writing process and move the rest down?
And then see how they.
Yes,
So
I mean, if we're
so we
gonna
on
do
our
writing
revision,
process, what's the
Writing
first
on
thing,
demand.
brainstorm or gather information or?
Brainstorm.
But I don't think you can have a progression on those, so I wouldn't list those separately.
Yeah,
Alright, then why don't you just put down, use a writing process? Well, we've got
I
it,
got it, that's the
okay?
if you don't have some kind of progression
that
of this one, you have progressions of the others, and they, I mean, I'm just saying, there's no one single process, I mean, you know, step 1, step 2, but at the same time, people are not, they're gonna look at like, why do you have revision ahead of drafting, or,
Right.
well,
Mhm.
it's not
And
gonna
I'm
make
thinking
any
of the
sense to
new,
people.
brand new teachers who are going to say, okay, so what is the writing process?
Yeah.
And we're not going to,
Have
if
any
we're
kind of-
not going to
Well, we talked
specifically.
about that yesterday with Lindsay, there was a piece in which, remember what I came over with
Right.
Liz? There was something in one of the standards where it was at the beginning with the guiding principles
Mhm.
of a basic overview of the writing process.
Okay.
It wasn't a prescription, but
Yes.
it was just a basic overview and an explanation of what does revising mean? What does
So-
editing mean? What does the drafting
Brainstorming,
mean?
is
It could
rewriting.
include organizers and brainstorming and
Okay.
Yeah.
Where did that live?
I'll
Was it
find
like in the?
So if,
So where would that live in relation to this? So if my
Probably.
teachers are going for this.
And I'm going back to the reading for a second, but like, it seems like if we're trying to model like how would you attack this in your classroom, I almost think you start by choosing the type of writing that you're gonna do, and then you research, and then, and even that's not a fair statement,
No,
and then you get to the, no?
cause no, I
No,
think you
go
choose,
more with
why am
purpose.
I writing it,
Yeah,
and then I
it's
think about
purpose.
what kind of writing is it gonna be.
Right, but okay, I see.
You know, like,
Yeah.
what am I writing and what's it for?
You would
But do
write
we
an
have that
argument
here?
versus an explanation based on what your purpose was. for the
Yes, but I guess I would argue that standard or whatever you just described comes into the same strand as choosing the type of writing and not in the same strand where we're talking about organizing and elaborating
Yes, I
and
would agree.
convention. That's what I'm saying, and that whatever that cluster is really should be first before research too, frankly.
And I'm gonna take that out and I'll just take it down here, we can talk about it more later.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Where we are, I think, saying that it really belongs.
And the writing on demand is in.
I don't know what's going on with the bullets here, but it's kind of fun, isn't it? Okay,
Parts of speech and writing, I think we can take parts of speech out, frankly, because it's a part of writing convention, maybe not, I don't know.
Yes, it is.
We put it back in the language.
That's what I mean,
And
it's
it's a
in
language,
language, I don't know that it makes sense here.
Yeah, it's a grammar.
Well, and it's in conventions.
It's in,
Yeah.
right, yeah.
okay, so parts of speech comes out.
Do we have a determining reason for writing, or is that implied somewhere?
Purpose.
Determining purpose.
I don't know that the collaborative writing, I like collaborative writing, I don't know that that's gonna have another progression again, I don't, maybe it does, I don't know, is that?
Do 6 through 12 students do a lot of collaborative writing?
Currently, no, I mean, I think that's potentially an expanded area, like as you look at more, this maybe we could combine it with technology,
Right,
frankly.
cause it's
There's the use
like the
technology
Google
in the writing
Docs with the
process.
presentations.
I mean, that's the only way I've ever done collaborative writing, is when you're doing it with someone else.
So, use technology in the writing process.
Or maybe.
Yeah, you could even just put use technology in the writing process, including collaborative
I
writing.
guess I'm asking a more fundamental question.
Is it
Is collaborative
long enough?
writing one of the things that we want to
Really
in the
want to
writing
focus.
process,
And I would
right?
say yes, it is one of, I don't
I
know
think
if
it is too, but I think it
because-
belongs down at the,
In the
we should,
genre?
well, it's not a genre, but it's also not a part of a
You know,
process.
I'm kind of looking at a
It's the kind of
distinction
writing-
between writing process and writing strategies. I, again, have perused and looked over a lot of different standards and different things, and maybe we're getting hung up with just trying to fit every little thing into those specific parts of the writing process as we know it, and maybe like an older California version, they call it writing strategies. And then they had it broken down like into organization and focus, research, technology, and evaluation and revision. And for each grade level, they placed things under there. So
but wouldn't the strategies be used in, first they'd be used in drafting, then they'd be used in revising?
that would be one of, yes, that would be,
So they're recursive strategies you use at various stages.
right, like the writing process is a strategy, is a writing strategy, because the hardest thing my kids are, you know, that shift, before we had that writing on demand all the time and it was so heavy, they're so used to going through the whole writing process, but now we've shifted to, well, they don't have to go through the whole thing because they don't have enough time to go through the entire thing if they're just answering a prompt, if they're just responding to an exit ticket or just something that I want them, and getting that focus
Right.
kind of shifted was a hard thing to do. There's different strategies involved in getting
Right.
to that point.
And when I was talking about
It's a new thing.
That's right.
reordering the clusters, I guess I was kind of thinking it like that, like, so like cluster one would be something about like, choose a type of writing based on your audience and purpose. Cluster two would be do research. Cluster three would then be like draft and produce your piece of writing. Instead of calling it the writing process, it would be draft and produce your writing.
I'm just thinking something because I feel like it's, we're kind of.
Yeah, I agree
Or
with you.
apply the writing
Tight with
process.
that process.
Right.
Well,
yeah.
I think
Say
that-
it about draft, revise, rewrite,
Instead of
right?
use the writing process,
Yeah.
apply.
Well, because the writing process is changing as the world is changing. So
Well,
it's
that's
no
where I
longer
was
just
thinking of
this,
collaborative writing,
Yeah.
that's now something done in
Yeah.
revision.
and it's during the,
So in a seventh grade classroom right now, they're doing collaborative writing as part of the revision
That's
process.
true.
The kids are
right, but you could be doing it as part of the development process, because we could be working on the same paper at the
Not
same time.
necessarily, no.
And look how
Well,
they-
our
And it could
our
be, but they're
conversation
using it
yesterday,
as
if you
part of the
remember, was
revision
about
and editing
production
process.
and distribution
The
writing
kids are going into
versus,
Google Docs and
which
making
I had
changes.
but that's.
I think the writing process is something that's going to have to be defined as you go through the grade levels.
Maybe it's apply a
Uh,
writing process.
Yes, because like in grade 6, here's the writing process, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. In grade 7.
I don't know, I think that the writing process is the same from sixth grade through 12th grade.
Right, but
It
it
does, like,
gets,
the writing process does not change.
well, but it does get a little more sophisticated as you go.
I think,
So-
do you have, you don't have anything in there
Well,
about
it
graphic
changes
organizers?
regional.
I like Casey's idea of
But
articulating
it's,
graphic
but it's
organizers.
organized information and ideas as a pre-write plan. It doesn't necessarily have to be graphic organized.
Like as the end user, I'm looking at all of that and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do all of these things. I'm like, wow, that's a lot of stuff. I gotta do that. I gotta do this. So to your point, like if we could organize it into and then to overarching bullets and then put it into the three, it's just easier to follow. I
Right.
believe for the end user to actually use that because that's just so much stuff we're saying. It's all important. I'm not knocking any of it.
And like Nick said earlier, there are traits in there, like style and voice. That's what you want your product to have. That's a writing trait that you want your product to have. So if we can separate them under, this is a trait, and this will help be the writing piece will be judged, and this is a piece of the process that might help too.
I guess, but see, my issue becomes when we separate those things out, those are things I'm doing during the writing
I was
process.
gonna say,
But I don't-
sixth trades.
I don't like
always
pulling
says
that
part of
apart
the
from the writing
Yes.
process.
Yes.
Can we rename the, I mean, I think that
Yeah.
name is doing it, can we rename it something
agree.
like
Yeah.
I agree. It's-
produce and, or draft and produce writing or something like
produce-
that?
Because the reading process is the same.
Yeah,
Right.
yesterday we said production, distribution of
Right.
writing,
Right.
Also
we
saying
had-
we need
but
to
we got
change
away
it to-
from that today,
Well,
or
we need to
yesterday.
change these to verbs, right, is what we've also said, so
I had
like we're changing these
yesterday.
into operable verbs, right?
But,
Reading
yeah.
clusters are verbs, right, it's
Yeah.
do this, do this, do
Right.
this,
So draft and,
draft and produce.
Yeah, we had at one point said developing, producing, and distributing.
Because if you do that, everything under there fits.
Distribution. So I was recording.
but then here we would have,
Quality, well, I started to say draft and produce quality written works, because if you're gonna judge quality down here now, style and voice.
Apply a process.
For
I don't know,
technology,
isn't that the draft, I mean, like, I just feel like that goes in there as its own thing, it doesn't ever change, it doesn't change.
No.
I don't see a progression of this,
Draft
of,
is a draft.
yeah, and I mean, it becomes more sophisticated in that the writer becomes more
Right.
sophisticated, and so
Whether
does
it's
the writing.
you know,
But the things that we do, the revision does not become more sophisticated, it's the writing
It-
that
it's always
does.
the
So
same.
If we put up their user writing process, can we take out the revision now and just define that as we go along?
Yeah,
Can we
we,
take out the revision and
Revision
the?
in third grade is gonna look a lot different than
Yeah, I know,
revision
but
in
aren't we
eighth,
gonna
you know.
But
define
it's
that
part
as?
of the writing
It
process.
Yeah, but aren't we
So-
going to
Right.
define it?
Casey, can you reread your
These
seven?
aren't standards.
Here, I'll show you.
These are not standards
Right,
here.
these are.
well, we assume that they will translate into standards, and we'll
Yes,
write a
but-
progression for them.
Yes, but under third grade, then you're gonna define what that writing process looks like.
It's just a different one.
Right, but you don't wanna have to define,
You don't need the word revision in there.
well, I think the group yesterday said that we do need the word revision, and they wanted it separate from the writing process, that's what I heard yesterday.
Well, that was when writing process
Because-
was the header though.
No, it was
So
actually a separate thing this earlier, I just deleted it and then put it
okay.
I
back in.
think Lindsay had a concern with what she, I think, wasn't that the conversation we had with her and like her class and what revision looked like, and I think that's maybe why we talked about it.
Well, and I know that the teachers in my district also have a huge concern over revision because they feel like it's not something that is, and I don't need it to be its own standard, I'm just trying to honor the work that we did, and
So could we not though here say use a writing process in parentheses, including but not limited to? And go
well, and
ahead
I'm
and
really
put-
fine with I'm just fine with identifying it
Alright.
in the glossary and moving on,
Can we put in parentheses?
unless we wanna
I'm
have
just
revision as
thinking
its
of
own thing.
defining
the writing process as for what we
Yeah.
determine it is, so that
But if we
there
said we
isn't
were gonna
that
put it in the
confusion
narrative
about
too,
where it goes.
if we said we were gonna put it kind of in that narrative piece in the beginning too, that would be helpful as well.
Which,
In order to get rid of some
Could we
Yes.
say as a cluster
On the
name,
verb,
use
yes.
a process to draft and produce, right? Would that get rid of this all, no? Yes.
We just need to decide, are we leaving writing process as
Use
its
a
own
process
thing
to
and getting rid
draft
of
and
revision,
produce.
or are we keeping revision?
If you use the writing, just leave the writing process, then you can put in parentheses everything that would be included in there, like plan, draft, revise, edit,
I hear what you're saying.
publish. And you can move all those bullets up behind that in parentheses.
But is
this
that
was
going
one
to
thing,
change
but this
from
is
grade
just what I
level
was
to grade
talking
level?
about.
Yes,
They
right.
just added this.
That's the point we're breaking.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Is it?
And it just.
You're gonna say this is what the writing process looks like for sixth grade, this is
Well,
what
I
the
would
writing
not
process.
know.
It wasn't like it was
You've got to include but not limited to, because these are the elements of the writing
Standards,
process.
the
So-
standard
Yeah.
Right,
Develop some
because I'm
license
thinking
That's what I'm
in terms
saying,
of
and
like brand new
Yeah.
teachers are
Basic.
going to look
Yeah.
at that and say, okay,
So-
well, editing and revising are the same thing. Well,
Okay.
no, they're not. And we know that, but I just
Well,
think-
but, okay, so Casey found this kind
This
of,
is what I showed Lindsay
yeah,
yesterday.
visual of the writing process, that maybe we could develop something like that and link it to ours. So, and it shows that it's kind of the arrows point both ways, so that
Right.
you're
Yeah,
always
that looks
doing,
like
you're moving in and out of them as opposed to going one. My problem with leaving revision as its own item is that I don't know what the progression is from sixth grade to 12th grade. Revise more and harder and better.
but that's part of the writing process.
but I don't see how it progresses from sixth grade through 12th grade is what I'm saying.
Because you're saying they all have the same basic elements of
Yes.
send, delete, add,
Yeah.
move.
You know, I don't see how you would say in sixth grade revision is this and in 12th grade revision is this.
That's what I'm saying.
So I
Right,
feel like
that's
using
us.
the writing process should be there. I don't think you can take that out of the writing standards. If you do, that will make us look like a fool.
Right.
Really, I think people will look at those and go, where's your writing process and why don't you have that?
Yeah.
But I think that
And I
taking
love
revision
that
out
idea
because
of
it's part of the process.
Because it gives you different stages of what revision could look like.
Yeah.
Right, and it's the DOK
But you
language.
could do that
yeah,
within the standard
visual,
of use the writing process.
Right, and I
You
think
know
we
what?
can even link something like that
In
to
sixth
our,
grade, it would mean
If you take these 5 levels right here that's shown on here, and we could get every one of those bullets underneath one of those 5 levels. We could
What are the
hyperlink it.
levels?
Yes,
5 levels.
that really is good.
But I guess maybe I'm preaching the choir. I see the progression is static, but the quality of the progression is dynamic.
Right.
So I
Right, but
see,
you can't,
how do you create a standard around that?
yeah.
If you notice, most of our bullets already.
The level of competency. That's what I'm saying, and that's not.
Yeah, because you're talking about how the sophistication changes, but we can't indicate, I mean, we could just say, yeah, like it's, wow, it's more sophisticated now,
I
it's
know,
more,
I
now.
Now it's more.
Now it's the most sophisticated it could possibly be. So can I get rid of revision?
Yes, yes.
I guess it's gonna be really hard work. Okay, so I got rid of that one, feel great about that.
So in collaborative writing, no, I'm moving on. So under use technology in the writing process,
Uh-huh.
maybe we do it to say an individual or shared. Right.
yes. I
Yeah.
like
Thank you.
that.
All,
Yes.
so if you're working on something on your own or as a Google Doc, because
Love
it's
it.
covered in the technology.
Well done, Carrie.
We've been cooking that one for a while.
I have been, yeah, I've been sitting on that one for a little bit.
Okay, so now we've
Nice pun, yes, we did.
I appreciate being with the English folks instead of social studies folks. You never get it.
Because all these things now that, like elaboration, detail, style, and voice, those are all, organization are all just elements
Sorry.
of a piece of writing.
That's like a.
Can we use technology to produce digital communication and or
Page 47, can it go?
That's what I mean, they're
there?
traits, they're the writing traits.
I think that that's even substitute, I don't even know that we need to spell out produce digital communication anymore, since use technology in the writing process, I think it's subsumed under that, personally.
But that's not what our
I
purpose
mean,
of that was to
I know
begin
they are
with.
different things, but I also think, I mean, it's also, in saying we want you to do a variety of different types of writing, and I don't know. Again, I don't know what, to me, it's the same debate as the interview, editorial, technical writing. If you're gonna spell that out 6 through 12, does that mean like 6th grade, you do a Google Doc, 7th grade, you do a blog, 8th grade? I don't wanna go there personally speaking, and I think we've left the door open in the standards for you to teach those things, but we haven't prescribed for you what specific forms you have to do. To me, use technology in the writing process says that I should be doing some digital composition.
And it changes
So this comes
Right.
out,
Right.
so fast.
okay,
Just when I learn something, get it down.
Then what are you gonna do with the traits?
I think we just need to put verbs in front of them, right?
well, but I agree, like, when you think about progression, how does that look then?
Yeah, it does.
A progression of style and voice, progression of elaboration and detail.
I mean, look at.
They're not in the same category as use of writing process. They're not even.
Well, no, but
They're
we
in
changed to
the-
draft and produce writing,
I
so,
know.
It's
Yeah.
not gonna be the same
And I-
all the way through.
Yes
But I
and
don't
no,
think it makes it less valid.
right? So, I mean, for example, if you look at the standards right now, and I'm sure most of them are that, right? You're right, right now, the Missouri standards do it by type of writing, right? Argument, narrative, informational text, but within each of those type of writing, like it says, you should be able to write an introduction like this, and that changes from 6th grade to 12th grade. You should be able to add detail to your writing, and that changes from 6th grade to 12th grade. I think you can write a progression for all of those. Like, what does it mean to be able to add detail as a sixth grader compared to an eighth grader compared to a 12th grader? What does it mean to be able to effectively organize?
In generic terms or in a
It's very
type of
specific.
writing?
Well, so I mean that's where it gets interesting, right? One could argue, and I wasn't here for this yesterday, I mean, one could argue if we feel that all of those text types are so important that we explicitly state them, we should have 4 strands for writing, not 1. We should have writing arguments, writing narratives, writing informational texts, and they all, I don't think, I'm not arguing that at all, but I'm saying, I don't think, you're right, I don't think there's a way you can discuss organization, elaboration, style, and conventions in a vacuum. But that's also why I personally don't think we should necessarily spell all of those, I don't know, out specifically.
Okay, let's move down to the third part for a minute. Let's talk about the.
Yeah.
What do we want this to be?
For starters, I would adjust the cluster heading to be something along the lines of choose a form of writing to match your audience and purpose.
I'm about produce writing in various genres like that. Well, and the reason
Well,
I say
you're
that
right.
is, yes,
Right.
yeah, because the
Produce,
thing
there you
is,
go.
you would put all of those in a, by the time you're a senior, you better be able to integrate several of them into
Right.
a
Single
text given a
document.
purpose.
Exactly, right.
Genres,
Genres.
Types, produce writing, produce various types of writing.
then, no, what is it? No.
But see, to me, don't,
Produce written documents that address a variety of purposes.
Well, it's more about that you know what an analysis is, an argument, what, if you're gonna write an argument, you need to know what the parts of it are.
Sure.
A classical argument. If you're gonna write a narrative, you need to know what has to go in the narrative. And then you embed those for a specific purpose, but produce writing.
So how do you envision this? Do you envision that we have a 6-12 progression on analyses, a 6-12 progression on arguments, 6-12 progression on narratives?
if you do, and that's where I'm going back, if you do, I almost see it as a matrix then, where it's like organization, what does that look like in each of these types? Development, what does that look like in each of these types? Narrative, what does it look, or I'm not narrative, conventions probably are pretty similar. But that's also why I'm saying, I think really, those skills are gonna be pretty similar still, even though they look slightly different in each form.
Yeah, and then we're saying this like, and maybe this is just because I'm at that end of it, so I don't. And I know that Carrie has said you wanna be able to tell a 5th grade teacher or a 7th grade teacher or whatever, this is what this looks like at this grade. But, I don't know that every grade has to do every single thing, and I don't know that it looks a real, or should look a real specific way in a specific grade. Does that make sense? I'm not, like, in the Common Core, it's instead of writing arguments, it's writing opinions, I think, until you get through 5th grade, and then it suddenly shifts to argument, because argument implies a particular structure, an evidence-based approach that would not necessarily be inherent in opinion.
Columbia.blackboard.com for a second. If I could just take just a quick second. So I mean, like in our district,
Wait a quick second.
we've developed like rubrics, right, for different types of writing, and they do have that vertical progression of skills that we're talking about. And even though we have 3 different rubrics, right, one for narrative, one for informative, one for argumentative, they still have largely the same skills at each
Yeah.
grade level. Are you with me? So I think this might help, and maybe it won't.
We've done that too.
Well. Yeah, they're not gonna be radically different. And I-
But if they're not gonna be, then that's why I'm saying, why do we need to?
Because people at every grade level need to know that you need to help your students write a narrative. They need to write a narrative, they need to know how to write an argument, that's one.
Right, but I'm saying, we aren't doing that with reading or.
Well, so what, that's reading.
Okay.
Writing can look different. which is, I don't
Writing
know.
is.
But what is, let me rephrase that first. I mean, for reading, we are all saying we still think it's extremely important kids read drama, poetry, fiction, nonfiction, but we're not spelling that out in the reading standards, right? Nowhere have we said you must read all of these things.
Always said, I thought something about varied types of fiction.
I mean,
literary
you're right, in our
text.
glossary, we will say that, but in the standards themselves, we have not broken out separate standards for poetry, for drama, and I
Well,
don't.
I know in Blue Springs, I wanted the teachers there to help their students understand what constitutes a narrative and how to compose one and to practice it recursively, grade level after grade level. And also to do that with opinion argument-based writing. And certain types of writing, I think, need to be repeated, and we've all said they progressively get more complex and sophisticated from 7th grade to 11th grade. But it isn't to say that you don't want students to do them, to
And I'm not,
practice that.
I'm not saying that at all, I'm sorry.
So,
The vertical progression may not look very different on it.
Right.
Right.
But it still needs to
I
be.
know, and I understand that, and I don't get what the problem there is.
yeah, okay, I think I'm getting your point, cause I'm looking at Massachusetts right now, and it's like, and 6, 7, and 8 numbers, 1 are all the same, right? Arguments to support
Right,
things across the board,
Right.
but then there's added things down.
Right, as you
And
get
as you get,
older,
as you go, there's more
it
stuff,
just
or
goes deeper.
it goes deeper, right?
That's,
Or it, says like using 6th grade standards, using 7th grade standards, so I mean, to Carrie's earlier point, it kind of does kind of
So the
swing,
scaffolding.
it kind of like keeps the process the same, and then, to your point, Bill.
Yeah, the SBAC items that I was assigned to write were on building arguments, writing arguments, and it was interesting to see how they identified the specs from writing a counter argument at grade 10 versus a counter argument at grade 11.
Right.
Putting that into this, you can do that. It's possible. Some of them, it's probably not possible to make settled
Well,
distinctions.
Like you said, going back to Massachusetts, I think they do a decent job of showing how a narrative, versus from 6th grade all the way up to 10th grade, where you're now writing things where you use changes in point of view and tone and mood, whereas back up at the 6th grade level, you're just writing, maybe learning about dialogue, and so you wouldn't put that in
In your
11th
narrative,
grade
yeah.
because they're expected to already know that, but you would add something in to ramp it up. And so for their narratives, they do a good job of at grade 6, this is what they should approximately be able to do. And then it's implied as you move up through the grade levels, all this plus adding in.
The other thing that makes me uncomfortable about adding a whole lot of specifics per grade level is then people feel like they have to teach, okay, you have to write a story with dialogue at this grade.
Right.
And then sometimes the very best narratives, and they can be really complex ones, to embed in an argument, for example, for a given purpose, would not have dialogue, and it would be pointless to have dialogue. You know what I mean?
Or they're gonna start creating specific rubrics to that specific thing, and they'll never get
The holistic
anything
thing
else.
of,
if that was helpful. I'm sorry.
what's.
I was just, what's that? So all I was trying to say is like, what we have is that in our district is a vertical progression of those skills. We still have 3 different rubrics because we expect 3 different types of writing throughout the year, but the skills, even though claim is obviously different from a topic, the skills parallel themselves, right? And what I'm saying is I think we could write skills standards in such a way for organization, for conventions, for development, that you can write them in a way that could be applied across a variety of writing types without having to spell them out specifically for every single writing
So they
type.
could stay in that development
That's what I was
of
trying to
writing,
communicate.
as
for, like,
opposed to,
yes.
and.
So do you want a different strength, cluster now that has to do with writing traits? Is that what
I'm
you're
okay
suggesting?
if we're keeping the name of that cluster. I'm sorry, which one?
Sorry,
There you go.
I think I closed it.
If we're keeping the name of the cluster, use a writing, but draft and
Draft
produce
and produce
writing, I
writing.
think it's fine there then to have organization is part of that, elaboration is part of that, conventions are part of that.
So do we just want a listing of characteristics then?
Well, but I mean, we need to turn them into verbs.
Okay,
like-
so how would we state that?
And can we,
Observe writing conventions.
Can we not cluster those all under, writing traits and just put them all in
President.
parentheses?
We could, I mean, I
I
don't
mean, just to
necessarily
cut down
wanna
on
do that.
bullets, just cut down on bullets, writing traits, and then put all those traits together and,
Well, except that I think you're gonna wanna develop them separately, right?
you
Like,
can,
or-
you still can.
Yeah, they don't have to be a separate bullet.
Yeah, you can still develop it and talk about them and teach them separately, but at least you glue them all together into one bullet to where people, when they create a scoring guide,
Then your
They have
standards will be like,
what I'm saying is I think each of those is something you would want a vertical progression on.
yeah.
You
Yes.
Want a vertical progression.
Yeah,
So
so
that's
like
why,
keep them separate.
that's why I would
That's
keep them
true.
as separate
Yeah.
bullets.
Right.
What about organization?
but Nick, if you keep those as separate bullets,
Mhm.
if you put writing traits and you put a bullet, and you list all the writing traits that you want to look at and focus on, when you flush out your standards, you can address each one of those.
That's what we're doing here, though, right? We're coming up with like, what are the
Like, what do we wanna carry
the
across
anchors going
all,
to be?
all
Right.
6,
What has
7
the
grade
vertical-
levels?
Let's go through one, like, where was your other graph, like silent voice, like,
Right,
give us an
silent voice,
example
how
of
does that
how you
progress?
progress,
Do they
yeah.
got it or not? I think it's still up there. So like if you, we'll have to go. Yeah, let's just, I have to open up a few grade levels at a time and they just.
But we're gonna have to like.
But you're not
It's two
creating,
oh
a-
five already.
but Nick,
Yeah.
you're not
But you know
creating
what
a
else,
scoring
though,
guide
Karen?
right now.
When you make your report, you can say,
You're
This is
only
where
cueing
didn't
a
finish
typewriter.
Well, that's fine. Yeah,
you
that's fine.
know,
I just don't want us to not do the report piece together. Before
Just
we
to
walk
give
out the door today.
Here, I'll just jump to 11th grade just to give you an idea of like the jump from 6 to, I mean, that will
Like,
leave
yeah.
some,
I
leave some steps in
know
between.
what you're saying,
right?
there's not, I'm missing the,
Yeah.
like silent voice, how do you?
Okay, so let's look at the same one for pick poison argumentation.
All right, but you're not creating a scoring guide right now.
No, but what I'm saying is,
Scoring
I
guide's
want my
based on
learning
the
objectives to be on the scoring guide. I want a perfect alignment there,
Right.
because otherwise we're adding an extra layer that doesn't need to be there. Alright, so here is the 6th
Possible
grade. That's informative, so here's, I'm gonna kill that so I'm not confused again. Here's the 6th grade one, so like introduce a claim, right? At 6th grade, that's the first time we teach that. And I should say, if it's in bold, that means it's unique to that grade level. So everything that's not in bold should be prerequisite. Like we've already taught you how to introduce a precise claim, but now at the 11th and 12th grade level, it's making what it knowledgeable. Now again, if that's glossary, like what the heck does that mean? But you get into the idea here, right? Logically, so organizes the reasons and evidence clearly. Well, now we're working on a logical sequencing. Varied syntax here. Again, everything that's not in bold has already been taught up to that point. What is in bold is what's new. For the first time ever in 11th and 12th grade, establishing the significance of the claim. Making sure you're doing this thoroughly. Making sure you're approaching possible biases.
All right, so if you had to
Compared
take
to the
all of that
6th grade.
information and give it one big overarching term,
Well, I have
how
over
would you
here,
describe
right?
it?
Organization,
Right.
development, conventions.
And that's what
All
I'm
right.
having
And
to
development,
do.
we've, like, our committee is broken into like language versus elaboration.
Alright.
You could, if we wanted, you could
Okay.
even break organization into
Okay.
more like sequencing
Yeah.
and focus. Or,
All right, so that would be, if you think, let's talk organization. All right, and then you have organization, and then when you do your grade level things, then you put those little discrete categories.
what's that? When you,
When you go to grade level.
I'm just concerned, we're just trying to come up with some overarching ideas to organize standards underneath, and we're
Right.
getting so darn specific.
No, I think we are, we have the overarching, which are our clusters. I think what we're gonna do is take these bulleted items and turn them into
Those will
standards,
become the
Yes.
K or 6 through 12. So
Right.
I think what we're saying is that we wanna have a standard on, I'm kind of writing again, on organization of writing.
Okay,
Yes,
well,
that's what I'm
that's
saying.
fine, I
Yeah,
thought you were
sorry.
going into,
Oh, no, I'm just, that's, I was using
Elementary,
that,
those
that's
little
all you would
specific
see.
yeah,
things.
I was using that to illustrate why I would like
Okay.
to see a standard for organization, a standard for elaboration, and why I think that standard can transcend genres of writing.
This doesn't always have to change, there's other pieces that are added on.
Right.
Right.
I think somebody should be able to look at this and go, okay, I should be able to somewhat see all of these features and pieces
embedded some way at a different developmentally appropriate level,
Yes,
vertically aligned, K
Yes.
through 12.
Yes.
right.
Yes.
This is our overview. It's not, you're not necessarily gonna have every single little thing in there,
Right.
but some form of it will show up, whether it's in kindergarten, you know,
Right.
or
And so,
7th grade.
instead of saying organization, you can say organized writing. So, I mean, I don't know,
With.
just say organized writing, or we could
Well, but you want them to show up on a rubric.
organized writing effectively. And again, that's gonna look different at the kindergarten level versus the
Right.
6th grade level versus the 9th grade level.
So
It's gonna look a
probably
little
those
different
terms.
depending on genre, but it's
So does
generally.
this kind of information right here show up in your glossary? And then we would also include there using graphic organizers?
Potentially, and I mean, I think it would also, yeah. I think it would also show up potentially when we start fleshing it out, right?
So
But
does
I
that
wouldn't
stay
put it
on here
there.
or does that come off?
I would put that document, personally speaking, and just know that that's what we're talking about.
Do you know what I'm saying?
when we're
Like
talking
these
about
things, so that we eliminate the such as kind of statement. And it wouldn't be including but not limited to, because they would, some of them would not be appropriate at certain levels probably, you know, and. Okay, so are you comfortable with me taking it off and that we embed it into the progression and then also include whatever we need to include in the glossary?
Transition.
Okay. Okay. What about elaboration and detail?
Isn't that a elaboration or development?
Yes.
Can we call it
You could call
development?
it develop your
Can we
writing.
call it
Why
development?
don't you just say develop your writing with elaboration and detail, or we could just
Well,
with
but there are other
detail,
ways to
redundant.
develop writing.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
Let's define it later.
Yeah.
Okay, you're really confusing me, I'm sorry. I just have no idea now what you want me to say. I just totally
Just-
lost everything.
If you just call it development.
No, we need a verb. Organized writing is developed writing.
Cause you're gonna go into the weeds on that later.
Okay.
Well, I think part of the reason we shied away from development before is because we broke out elaboration and detail from style and voice. Style and voice and elaboration and
Right.
detail all make up development.
Well, then just put it in parentheses and then,
Oh.
I mean, well, you could still keep develop, right? I mean,
you can develop it through arguments, you can develop through elaboration, you can.
So develop does not
through details,
belong
you can
here,
develop
because what
it
we
through-
want is elaboration and detail. That's what's important to us. We want students to be able to elaborate and include details, correct? That's what's important
Make
to us?
that the verb, like
Yeah.
elaborate.
Sorry. Right, I mean, I just wanna get to the, like, what is the essence that we're trying to get to? So I feel like we're clouding it by adding more words to it, as opposed to getting to the heart of it. So
Alright, and
the
I
heart of
also-
it is elaboration and detail, right?
Yeah.
So then how do we articulate that in a statement that we will flesh out vertically later?
Elaborate,
Elaborate, provide detail.
You wanna start with words?
What's that?
If you're doing verbs.
That's good. Aren't you elaborating when you say detail?
Yes, you are.
Pardon?
Aren't you already elaborating when you're adding detail?
Yeah. You are. I
Elaborating.
think.
GP's gonna.
So you're saying use.
It isn't that green. Things like green matter.
And provide details.
Something about developing with,
Ideas.
relevant and adequate
Yeah,
evidence.
elaborate on ideas.
Elaborate
And use.
on ideas through.
Develop
and
with
use detail.
relevance
It's true.
and,
Yeah,
adequate,
elaborate.
adequate, relative, or adequate details.
Yes.
I still
Yes.
see a
Like that.
but I hope you miss that,
Adequate?
because it'll just cause more trouble.
Using effective. How about effective and
I am.
adequate?
Adequate to me just seems.
Effective
Minimal.
instead of adequate.
Effective
Right.
is better.
Average.
Well, we're not writing a story
Effective.
guide right now, we're just putting down an overarching organizational structure.
And I said adequate simply because I meant enough.
Like enough,
That was
that's,
the
that's
elaboration
That's
part.
sufficient.
Yes. Yeah,
sufficient is what I was, I don't know, I think I except I can't.
Sufficient, subjective. Who's gonna measure sufficient? How you gonna measure that?
That's grade level specific.
Well, I
So-
think
So
that-
relevant.
I think the thing that I would want here is I would want them to know when it is enough and when more is needed. So it needs to be sufficient to, like, and I think that that's part of your revision process. You would like to help, like, I would have my partner read it, like, read this, and if they still have questions, then I know I need to add more detail, right? But if they don't, then it should be sufficient. But knowing when it's sufficient is important.
Right.
So I agree with you that it feels really subjective, but I would sure like to be able to teach into that, knowing when is it too much, when you're telling me all about, and I don't want to know all about, I just want to know about this, or when you are talking in so many generalities that I don't really understand what you're trying to tell me. Does that make sense?
But that'll go into individual.
Yeah, I would
too.
I would love to see that students would know what sufficient
What
is.
sufficient
Yeah.
is for your grade level.
Yeah, and for the type of writing,
Yeah,
and for the
because
audience,
it's different.
and the audience impacts that too. Okay, style and voice.
Use and effective.
Use style and voice.
Yeah, just make it simple.
All right.
I think effective is important in there.
Yes, use effective.
You're gonna use,
Yeah, right.
just may not be adequate to the.
Right.
Applicable?
It may be inefficient.
What did you say?
Applicable? I mean, are we talking about
Appropriate.
Appropriate.
Style and voice,
Yeah, like
Okay, effectively integrate information from sources.
I still personally feel that belongs in the other strand, but. I'm
Which
not gonna
which
write
one?
Research.
Yeah. It doesn't fit there, no.
It does.
Okay. So you would put this part here.
It can be in all kinds
I
of
would-
ways.
Yeah.
Right,
I know.
it could be everywhere.
I think I would leave it here, because finding the information and then is
Yeah,
one thing,
that's fair.
but then integrating it into what you're writing is a completely different thing.
Could it be up above though and elaborate using relevant and sufficient details?
Yeah, because see, the problem,
Yeah.
the way this is
Information from
worded is the
sources.
from sources, is
Right.
that's what makes you feel like it
Right.
belongs in the research.
Right, so you could just include it up there.
So
I would say maybe in parentheses that including
Right.
integrating information from sources.
Right,
Because when you have elaborate, you're saying relevant and sufficient detail, that includes integrated information.
right, right. Ooh, aimfully.
what's wrong? What did I do? I'm sorry.
Including integrating.
Oh yeah, I don't like that either, but
Include,
Including
including
integration of
integration.
information.
Right.
Institutions.
it's English.
Sorry.
Okay.
You know, Carrie,
Should that be elaborate using sufficient relevant details instead of relevant and sufficient?
Oh, yes,
sufficient, relevant.
yes.
Oh, I cannot spell that word. Okay. do it
Oh, wait,
again.
but you can
Sorry.
take out those.
I know, I meant to, I'm sorry.
You also don't need the comma.
Page
We're
4.
not trying
They're
to
not
make
sufficient
you-
and relevant, they're relevant, and
Right,
it's a
you don't need a
sufficient number
comma.
of those.
Between sufficient and relevant.
Alright, I'm about ready to let you guys type.
No way.
Sorry. I have a quick suggestion that might solve this problem on the very end. See that, they're all the different types of writing? What if we took, if you go back up to the, okay, and where it says, develop and produce writing, right up there? What if we put develop and produce formal and formal writing such as reports, narratives, informational texts, arguments, and informal texts such as outlines, notes, resumes, etc. And could we do away with that whole bottom part down there?
But not for
But
high
do we
school or
want-
college. But do we want
Right.
grade level standards for each of
Yes.
these
Yes,
types?
yes.
If we do, then we almost have to leave them separate, don't we?
All right, so do every one of those
I think you have to have a
finish out
progression
down
of
there?
them.
Yeah.
I think you do, because I think that one of the things that we've been talking about is that when we get to the upper level of high school is starting to combine those and use
Okay.
these pieces of them effectively, and I think that needs to go in there somewhere somehow.
All right,
Because that's something that we do not include. It's not stated anywhere, but is so important. And also, I think that there are things that developmentally we wouldn't ask kids to do in a narrative in the elementary levels, but we would later on. So
Okay.
I think it makes sense to me that we would leave it like that. Now,
Well, then, wouldn't we put, would it make more sense to put narrative and informational writing before analyses?
Whoa,
and-
did I do
Oh,
that?
Sign from God.
You're gonna kill me.
Wait,
I wouldn't blame you.
no, it's just okay. It's
Just
just
connecting to that.
that is so funny. From God. It's time to go. No, it was just the prior thing. Okay, I'm sorry, I got lost.
Okay.
So we were talking about something. What were you
Well,
saying, Nancy?
No, I think that's fine.
The
Happy hour,
progression,
I
the
think.
progression in When those we different put types. Narrative and informational before analyses and arguments.
Oh,
because
sure,
I
yeah.
don't know why, but I always see those as
Sure.
easier forms.
Are we good with the produce writing and various, we just changed that, didn't we? So we are good with
Districts are
that.
gonna do however they choose to do it, so.
But we're implying a hierarchy by the order in which we list them, so.
I don't know what's going on there. Argument then analyses,
Yeah, probably.
are those kind of not,
Maybe I would say it.
yeah, whoops. Oh, really? What's going on there? Okay, that's kind of fun though, right? Figure out where we are. Are we on the dungeon ones or not?
Are those right or writing?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
I was listening. and
Right,
not watching.
We didn't talk
right
about it.
information text, right arguments.
Are they right?
Well, we want them all to be very similar.
Right.
Are they right?
Right. Right.
I know. I know, right? Sorry. That was terrible. I agree. So is it text? No, they don't need to be effective.
This is just producing the various types.
We're going to assume
And
that.
all
Yes.
I was kidding about that. I mean, whatever.
Well, arguments.
I guess I guess right. Arguments.
Right arguments.
Right arguments, yes, sorry.
Okay.
And then,
Then we have this produce writing in various forms for writing purposes. Do
That's
we?
kind of a heading, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what I was.
Yeah.
So are we?
I think we put it in there because we wanted
Well, I
to get
just-
all those others in, like.
I
the
dropped it down to get it
interviews.
out of here.
We could just say write everything else.
So does it? Does it?
Anything else.
Well,
Because we think it doesn't fit into these categories.
And so on and so on.
Well, but actually the reflection, the editorials, the technical writing, that's where you integrate the various modes, possibly, right? So
there might
do we
be
wanna
several
say
occasions. where
write
you do
texts
that.
that integrate rhetorical modes?
I like
Say it
that.
way.
I do like it, but that would be
I
like a
think
high.
that's-
That'd be a high school probably only.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
that's why I keep saying is that.
No,
they don't
I would
need
be
to
no, I would be fine with that.
Yeah.
But integrate.
Rhetorical
have
modes.
text that integrates,
How do you feel about adding that
Yeah.
and getting rid of
Right
produce
text
writing in various
that
forms?
integrates rhetorical modes. Is the excellent term. I like it.
So I would argue, I mean, would the idea be that like at the earlier grades, you're having separate standards for each of these, but by the time you get to the higher grades, it's more about just integration? I don't
Well,
know. if I would-
What do you mean by rhetorical modes?
Well, I mean, argument,
Argument.
narrative, persuasion,
All of the
process,
Okay,
any,
but
any of the rhetorical modes.
But we need to also consider too that this is for career readiness too. What would be the best terminology?
That's what it fits, is
Yeah,
career
how
technical
to
writing.
process.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then being able to determine when a narrative aspect is the best to introduce your recipe. There's a narrative aspect and then there's the step-by-step piece. So that's more informational. So,
Is that repetitive of the informational and the narrative and the text, rhetorical modes?
No, because it's integrated is the theme of it, yeah.
What about writing on demand? Does that need to be a separate bullet?
Yes.
Can you space it out? on sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade, sit down and write, sit down and write.
I wanna tell my kids,
Sit
sit
down
down
and
and
write.
write.
Sit down and
Yeah.
write. That's our standard.
Sit down and
Sit
write.
and write.
You have to say produce writing on demand. Produce writing on demand. If you're
So
taking
that-
the ACT test in April, you're gonna be doing it good.
Up to essays.
I know, but
Right, let's go.
I don't know that it's a standalone standard.
I think
You have to practice.
I think it is,
Where
exactly,
write down
I
your
think it's a
thoughts? I mean, is
standard
that what
because.
Are we talking
We're
about
talking
essays?
essays.
Okay.
Or,
And there are other instances
You
where
know,
people
just
have to produce
sit down
writing on demand. They have a
know.
time limit, like we have a time limit.
Well, like at work, I have to get
Yeah.
something done now. I have a deadline to do.
To me,
and-
that's more of a task
Sustain.
concern than it is like a skill. I mean, yeah, I mean, if you don't practice it, you're
Well,
not gonna be good. If you don't practice it, you're not gonna be good at it, but in the same way that if I don't practice writing for a career setting, I'm not gonna be good at writing for a career setting. I feel it's encompassed in the earlier statement that said write for writing demands purposes.
All right, can you put it in a topic like sustained and short writing projects? Can you put it in a topic somewhere?
No,
or
it's a
not?
different one. And it doesn't need to be anywhere except at high school, but it sure, I mean, I don't know. You don't,
disagree with that.
Produce
you think
short
it needs to
and
be in the others? Okay.
I mean, I think if it's gonna be there, it needs to be everywhere, but the other thing I'm thinking is that I feel like that's getting really to pedagogy, like I need to be teaching you how to do that, but that's a practice thing that we're doing, not a, I teach you how to write on demand.
And we're doing it as a district only because we recognize they have to do it on assessments. So it's one of the things that we've started embedding in.
Right, and we recognize that it has to be done, like, when we wanna see how students are growing in writing, when we let them work through the entire writing process, we can't tell all that they know about writing because they're getting so much extra help, and that's great, and a lot of times you get that, but sometimes we wanna see what can you do on your own, given this amount of time, and and these materials, cause we wanna see what do you know,
But it's independently, so what,
but it's not a skill we're
So
teaching
you
them.
think it's a curricular thing?
I do.
I do too.
Take it off then.
Writing on demand.
is it writing independently or writing on demand?
On demand. I feel like that's something that my AP Lang teacher
Yeah,
better be
I mean,
doing.
if you've got 2 hours and you've got 3 essays to write,
Yeah.
you've got 40 minutes per essay, and that's
And
every
my
same
sister
AP
teachers,
exam you
My
take.
A push
That
teachers are
happens.
doing that. I mean, like, that's not just a,
We do it in freshman comp to help students learn to write essay teams.
Mhm.
I mean, we don't spend a lot of time on it, but
All right, the terms I'm thinking about are on demand. I know what it means, but is goal to have them write independently?
yes.
All right, so would it be writing independently?
And
Or
it's
writing
not
on,
impromptu.
okay,
But keeping in mind without like physically saying, here's my draft, here's my rough cut.
Yep.
Because there are times when they have to sit down and write, but they need to be cognizant of those steps in their head and going back through it as they're writing. Whether they're annotating off to the side or whether they're highlighting something to use.
Right. Well. We
And
can
that
take it
doesn't
off.
just
and-
Now, take it off if you want, and the schools like ours, we're gonna be doing it anyway, it's just that the schools that,
Right.
I feel bad for other schools, that's all.
I do too. I do
feel bad.
both. I want
Yeah.
mine.
Leave it on there.
That's all, I mean, it's not gonna hurt my school, but.
If you leave it on there, they're gonna do it.
You know,
If
well-
take it off, it won't happen.
so then, so a
better
good question
leave it
is that reflected in your narrative?
Yes.
That when students are writing, first of all, we want them to write independently, they want them to use the writing process to apply it to,
Apply
on
to
demand,
writing on
yeah.
demand.
and that writing takes many
Okay.
shapes and forms, because writing is note-taking, you know, writing is something that's more sustained where research is applied, writing is an on-demand, writing is, so maybe that's where it falls.
Impromptu writing is a type of writing, I mean, it's not in the same
Right.
category as a type,
Like
that
a
argument
free
is a
writing,
narrative, but it is a type of writing.
I like putting it in the narrative.
I do too.
As long as it's part of
Okay, so yeah, like how do we hold on to that, do we not forget that goes in there?
Maybe highlight it right now and put off a little note.
In here,
Yeah,
like,
just
put
kinda
it
like how I
in.
have on the language one, like we better add something about
Yes.
ELL,
Start or something and add this to the narrative.
really. It knows better what I want.
You know, expectations in the last 20 years have just evolved tremendously.
Okay. I'm so proud of you.
I'm proud of you too.
Do you know how long that list was? And look what we did with it. You can't leave
Nice.
yet. Don't get excited.
Timer on
Ready for the.
Okay. So, I guess,
I had to get a refill downstairs.
so I have to turn this in. I have to type it up. Do you, I guess we need to talk through how much you trust me to type up things when you're not in the room.
Implicitly,
And then, well,
totally.
yeah, thanks.
Just send it to us.
Okay, well, I know, but when if I send it to you, it'll be after I'm submitting, I have to submit it today. So, I don't want,
Today?
yeah, or tomorrow or whatever. It's
Today.
It's today, okay. I don't want to, have you, I don't wanna put something on there that you're like, I really wish you would not have done that, or I wish you would have added, and it's not there. So, I'd kinda like you to work through this with me, okay?
Okay.
All right.
We will.
So I'm gonna just pull up another document really fast.
I
And
appreciate you asking.
I'll put the questions on here. Yes, I want to share it. Okay, so the first one says, statement of work group objective. So is that to develop standards for,
ELA standards 6 through 12.
to
Develop
Develop.
Missouri ELA standards. 6 through 12?
ELA standards for
To make parents happy, which is that we.
Missouri ELA standards for grades 6 through 12,
Yes,
not 2, 12?
English language arts.
Okay,
Funny, huh?
it says WG on there, so I'm sticking with their thing. We have a liaison, that's what we have, right?
And the voice of.
The voice
Okay, liaison and how many committee members?
And we have 16.
Oh, yeah, 16 have shown. We
16
had 17
appointed?
appointed. All 17 have been appointed. Nancy H has never responded.
Now, Barry, who appointed you? Were you?
Well, Malia.
She's the,
Higher ed.
she's the teacher prep.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, we never had one lady respond. I was wondering what happened to her. and
Yeah, I was saying,
contact or anything.
I followed up with Deb's office, I'll follow up again, because she was an NC appointee, so I'll follow up again. Okay, progress report,
She had a teacher.
I don't know. Who is Nancy Hay?
she's a parent, I believe.
Okay.
Was she a parent?
I think so.
Yes, she's the Senate parent representative.
You guys can see what I'm talking about, I cannot, because I've got the paper in front of me. Regarding what has been,
I really like their headings. They don't have the sustainability.
They come in here once and then I'm not coming back.
Yeah.
Somebody came in once and we're
That's
gone
not
after
much,
that.
it's
Rude or animated.
They're not.
I'm not putting that on
You
there.
don't need to put that in.
I'm not putting that there, okay. So our progress report is that we, like I said before, I'm just gonna bullet it, okay? Developed and reached consensus on, on graduate outcomes, right? On graduate outcomes related to English language arts. We developed and, we,
Review.
first of all, reviewed standards from, and it's a, I can't really
Multiple
say.
states.
Yeah,
We deal with lots of different letters.
Massachusetts, Missouri, South Carolina,
Indiana.
and Indiana.
Indiana, South Carolina,
Those are the four.
Indiana.
Georgia.
Georgia,
Yeah, whatever you pulled up.
Missouri.
Yeah.
Hold
But
on,
as
I
a
can-
group,
I
those
can
were the
find
four we did,
What
like
you've already,
compare and
pulled up.
contrast.
Okay,
Indiana, Massachusetts, Minnesota, Missouri, South
California.
Carolina, California.
what we like and Okay, we identify what we want,
We identified standards.
Well, I think she's talking about the blue doc. We identify what
General-
we want in a.
general
Oh,
items
oh.
to be included in standards and not to be included in the standards. Okay. And then we developed and reached assessments on ELA strands, clusters, and what would you
Indicator.
call those?
I call them anchor standards, but
I've put anchor standards in the notes earlier after that term was used.
We've been calling this.
You've been calling
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
At
What
work
do we call them they're, but we're not done with them, so I'm gonna call them standards, yeah, because I don't wanna confuse.
Standard.
Okay, that's good. I just don't wanna confuse anyone. Like, oh, you already have your standards
Potential
done?
anchor standards, do you wanna add anchor to that?
It's up to you.
No.
and we do have consensus on that, right? Like everybody like what we've come up with. Do we need a vote?
Well, I was hoping to vote on the 5 drafts that we have, so we can take those and move forward, if we can.
Say that again, you want?
I was hoping to vote on these 5 drafts, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, so we can use them to move forward in December. Okay, no. What am I looking at again? Can't remember. Sorry, I need to title that. This is the
Hearing.
Progress hearing. Report. Okay, so that's our progress, right? Description of remaining steps to completion. Of remaining.
You could just call it work review. Confuse them by using.
No, I just don't wanna. Okay, so what we need to do is develop the vertical or the the progression, the vertical progression of, okay, develop the vertical progression of standards aligned to strands, clusters, potential standards. Okay.
You might wanna, Carrie, you might put Kate might on there, cause somebody on board may go, what? Sounds like no.
Well, our work is 612,
I know.
so it's asking for,
I'm just
But you
making it
could
easy
put,
for
we
the reader.
collaborate with the K-5.
Yeah.
Right.
So how
Remaining
about,
steps.
Separate bullet point.
Under right,
In
remaining
December.
steps.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, right.
I see what you're saying, okay.
K-5 word group,
Oh, yeah, right.
just in case.
Okay,
We don't really talk about this.
not really, we could. Okay, so,
should we put under there, under progress review,
But you wanna write guiding principles and,
oh, yes.
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 and glossary, yeah.
Massachusetts, they had a little blurb of giving credit to Massachusetts for the guidance on it.
Okay, so what do you want me to develop guiding principles?
Guiding principles,
Glossary.
narrative, and, glossary.
And then how do I better articulate the narrative piece so that it's not like narrative?
I would just put, just put it.
Okay.
Make it complicated. Didn't we vote to use the Missouri, show me standards?
Yeah.
for
Oh, yes, we
placement?
We haven't done it much. If you go
We
back and look
referred
at
to
it.
it a
Yeah.
little
We
bit.
did. We did.
And I
talk-
think it's important to tell them that we did.
We did
that we voted
reference
on it.
those.
If you look at it and look at our strands, everything we've done fits into it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all
So
there.
they're all there.
The Missouri,
Show me
Show me
standards.
context standards.
Do we have, where is it?
I have not done that. Let me see here. Does that fit there? Should I put that under any other issues important to a particular work group? Should I put on there that that's something that we've done, like it was important to us to include, blah, blah, blah? Okay, so let me, first of all, is there anything here?
Yeah, we voted to like establish our processes to, you know, we spent a lot of time just like voting our internal.
Oh, for under what we've done?
Yeah.
Okay,
Establish meeting.
okay, so are you saying we
Established
Sorry,
meeting protocol.
established
I've got plenty.
meeting and
Yeah.
voting?
Yeah, protocol.
Are there any obstacles or tools that we require? We don't require obstacles,
For
but you can read it.
printing availability,
Reimbursement for costs incurred by members of the committee.
printing availability.
Sorry.
Okay, so
No,
reimburse,
don't be sorry. All those
Uh,
are-
I've got
Reimbursement, costs,
to committee.
and, you know, there are some people that are being provided substitute teachers from districts too.
Right, and I'm like, you know, some are and I think
And
Should we put in parentheses then, parking, lodging, meals outside of lunch, substitute teachers, should we put all that in the list?
oh,
I would, I mean, I would think
they need to know what we're picking at. Yes.
Yeah.
Mileage.
what else did you say?
Mileage, yes. Cost of substitute teachers.
And also, while you're asking for it, substitute reimbursement
Right,
fees
for
or
the districts.
consulting fees or honorariums, one of the three,
For what?
whichever
districts.
applies. Because like, well, substitute reimbursement
Right.
fees,
Et cetera.
consultant fees or honorariums, whichever
Here's where we can use et cetera very effectively.
Like I get paid so much a day when I go into district.
Oh,
And so every day I'm here.
Page
it's
setters and author.
consulting fees.
well, sometimes districts get reimbursed too
Yeah,
for the substitute.
right.
I bet all that's good.
I mean, cause that's,
Your
you're not a part
district.
of the
No.
right?
Okay.
No, I mean,
Okay, so can we quickly,
Yeah.
knowing that we're gonna come back to these and continue to work on them, can we vote on these 5 documents? That we're going to use the information within them, knowing that for speaking and listening and for language, we're going to have to probably rework them because we didn't refine them. But that way we can take that work and just carry it forward.
Why do we wanna vote then? We're in agreement with it, why
That
does
she.
Cause I wanna have record that we're in agreement with it so we can move forward.
I mean, the motion could simply
Yeah.
be that we, approve.
And I
the
just wanna do all
drafts
5 of them, I don't wanna
principal.
do one at a time, I just wanna say, I mean, and the caveat will be knowing that we retain,
I think if we approve them as drafts in principle,
Approve as
so that we can
Okay.
move forward.
I think that's better than what I was gonna try to say.
Approve them as
Okay.
drafts.
So I'm
Which
not
means
making the
we
motion,
can
sorry.
still make all kind of changes.
So
But
somebody
we
can make a
approve
motion.
presenting that this is what we've drafted.
Right.
So somebody-
So
So I move that we, approve our liaison, or whoever is making the print. I move that we approve presenting these 5 clusters as the drafts we've developed so far.
Clarify, do you mean strands?
Yes.
Strands.
And the clusters
Thank you.
within?
Yes.
Strands
Okay.
and clusters. Strands, clusters,
And potential
and even
standards.
potential standards,
Okay.
all of it, the whole.
So you move to approve presenting the 5 strands, clusters, including clusters and potential standards within those, okay. Thank you.
In draft form.
That's right, as
In
drafts.
drafts, as drafts.
Yeah.
As drafts, okay.
Right, as drafts, that's important. So we're not,
Mhm.
we haven't
They're
finished.
not
Right.
final.
I second. Is that
And you
enough?
said, Maridella, you said presenting, do you mean
As
your
part of the-
liaison presenting to the State Board of Education? Okay.
Do you want to specify as part of the progress report?
Nancy seconded.
I don't really wanna repeat all that, but, is there any discussion? 'Cause I tend to skip that step. Okay, so, can I just say all in favor? Do you know what we're voting for? I don't have to repeat, thank you. That's wordy. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. I can't see that, so is that unanimous?
Yes,
Okay. And there's no opposed, so thank you. Okay, great, thank you. Back to, okay, you can. Aaron, so we would do that before she left, she wanted to do that, so. Real quickly, other obstacles? Or tools, I guess is really,
I just wanted to clarify, on access to print, is it really more access to printed documents? Or I mean, is that what we're complaining about?
Access to printing, I would say.
Yeah.
Because if
Well,
I'm a printer, we don't print.
Right. Well, sometimes you want something.
or maybe it's just the ability to print documents, right?
Yeah.
Right,
Ability to
print
print
Documents.
Because sometimes we want a copy of something.
and we
don't
can't
have
get it.
Okay.
That's related to funding issues though.
Yes,
Right.
right, but that's very specific.
Right. We don't always want 100 page, we might want one or
Yeah,
two
they just
copies
wanted
of something.
One
Right.
note.
Yeah,
We did get those yesterday, but
Yes.
I wanted just to clarify, Carrie has,
They're sitting over here a while.
that was printed.
We ended up not going back to that at all, so,
Going back.
yeah,
It was
the,
actually your
What
very
was that?
first work, I think it was.
it was the one I had typed up and sent. Oh, I just
So we
repeated.
printed those yesterday.
Okay, so,
Oh, well, I'll take a
I
copy
didn't
if
put it in
there were
Word
some
document.
printed.
stay with me. Any other other issues important to a particular work group? That includes, so stay with me on this while I type it so we can make sure that we're good here. We want it noted, I gotta,
Oh, did we want to note that we're basing our discussions on those two documents?
yes, I'm working on that here, so, we are basing our,
Or
Or we are-
considering,
we are-
considering the curriculum alignment initiative and
We're adhering to.
in our work. You'll send this out to us, right?
yeah, it's actually, if you have access to that,
That document.
folder, it's already in there.
I'll check it.
Did we list show me?
So is this all together, entry level competencies for ELA? Like, is that all one word, or not one word, but you know what I'm saying? All one statement, or is it, like, where's the title stop? It feels really long.
I think maybe just listing that.
And
That's
that's
all.
okay.
That's-
And then
that's
career
Career ready
ready
practices,
practices,
career,
okay,
care ready.
come on. I mean, it's
We do care.
the same, right? And then the show me standards, I'll just reiterate. What, okay. So how do we feel about that? And then my plan is then, maybe what I could do is say, see attached. Cause that way those documents can go with it. Okay, so,
There were a few more states Carrie mentioned that I
Oh,
don't know if
yeah.
you wanted to add.
yeah, I wanted to add, we also
There.
consulted,
Well, I think you listed it
You
up
listed
there.
them, but you left a few out.
The
Right.
reason she listed those up there, those were 4 state standards that we specifically as a committee looked at.
now, are there other states specifically that we've been looking at all day, or all?
Right, yeah, you listed a few of them that
All in
Carrie
states.
had added. several more.
Indiana, I think we had,
Yeah,
Massachusetts,
Yeah.
Minnesota, Georgia,
Yeah.
Georgia, California.
hold on. Georgia, California,
Texas, South Carolina,
have that one,
Indiana,
I have that one,
Minnesota.
okay,
Well,
okay,
do we want
Because-
to say the following state standards?
oh, yeah. Oh, that's weird. No, that's fine. Thank you. Because what we did was we specifically looked at what we like and not like about these standards, but down here we've been consulting. Oh, well, I probably should say
Didn't we also do the
in addition,
standards?
well, I think I should list them all. South Carolina, sorry.
The
Indiana.
Council of Teachers of English,
Yes,
those as well.
NCT.
So I had, whoa, what do I have going here?
No, E at the end.
You need,
CHUSSET.
Thank you.
Indiana.
there's only one S.
I do know.
No,
Yeah.
E.
Are you French?
I don't really, right now,
So she should say quoi.
Right now, you're
right now I'm whatever shows up on the keyboard, honestly.
Indiana.
Indiana, thank you.
And then we, the National Council of Teachers of English.
Yeah.
I just say that.
I probably should type that out, right?
Since Sandra Stotsky's now posting things to our Google Doc, do we want to add her there too?
She's not posting things, no one's posting things.
She did about 15 minutes ago. Someone's given her access to our Google Drive and she is posting documents there.
Yes.
So I just wondered if we want to add her.
Where is that?
Or someone shared with her, I guess. It could be.
I mean, I see that she's viewing our access, I don't see her posting things, is she adding things?
I'm sorry.
So viewing the, I mean, is
I was
that,
gonna say, how do you post?
Cause I shared everything in a view only, cause I was really, I'm a kind of a little bit of a control freak over things getting erased when I'm not watching.
Maybe
Yeah, cause I tried to.
I don't-
look at it.
Yeah, and I don't mind them all being edited at the same time while we're in the room, but I figured then,
Is that everything that's in there?
So.
yeah,
where-
that's
where did you
everything.
see her name?
So like in Google, it'll
So,
post
like, right
when
here.
people
It's right here.
look at things.
when it tells you like that they've shared an item or something. So,
It says Sandra Stotsky shared an item Sunday, 9:24 p.m. review of standards.
She's on there.
She's on there.
Is that saying she can view it, or she viewed it, or she shared
She's
it?
saying she can't do it. This is, I didn't share it with her. These are all the people I shared it with, but then she showed up. So someone shared it with her.
How did that happen?
I don't know, like I said, I didn't share it.
Had to be somebody who has access to it and share it. I think you can set a Google Doc so that you can't, the only
no,
one who can
someone
share
shared
it
with
is the
her.
administrator who.
Right.
Well, I thought
But
that
if
that's
you
how I
don't
had
set
it, but I
that
can't
way,
figure out how to do
anybody who
it.
has
That's what I
access
do
to
with
it
my
can share it.
students.
But
So
I-
somebody that Carrie gave access to could share it with anybody else.
Yeah, which is interesting, cause I didn't know I had it set that way, but that's fine.
That's just how a Google Doc works.
Just learning, I just went to training.
So the only other thing I have in this folder is I have the agenda from the first time, which I can drop in there. I just didn't wanna put it in the folder I was sharing with you that day, cause I don't wanna confuse things. And then I made this graphic, but it didn't work out, so I had to put it on another piece of paper, but I'll show it to you now. See, I made that, and then it's on it's on one of the documents I shared. So, cause that was something we talked about that first day. But anyway, so this is in there. So just real quickly, please. Statement of our work group objective is to develop Missouri ELA standards for grades 6 through 12. The description of our organization, we have a liaison, 17 appointed members, 16 who have attended. Our project report is we have established meeting and voting protocols. We've developed and reached consensus on graduate outcomes related to ELA. We've reviewed standards.
Review.
Sorry. I'm not into top feelings. Reviewed standards from Massachusetts, South Carolina, Indiana, Missouri to determine what we like and dislike.
We got an
Indiana,
comma. That's great.
We are the ELA work group.
Okay, we identified general items to be included and not to be included in the new standards.
I don't wanna trade places with you.
I'm waiting for comment on that one, because it's not nice, but I'm not really sure how to make it better right now.
You just, we identified how we want the new standards to be organized.
Okay, that's better.
I feel that's
Good.
less nebulous.
Yes, it is.
And less likely to be misinterpreted as something that it's not.
Okay, we voted to use the Missouri Show Me content standards. Or
You need to put in
ELA.
parentheses, not Common Core. I know what the Show Me standards are. I'm afraid if the public looks at this, they're gonna freak out.
Okay, so should I put not,
Common Core.
not the Missouri
Cause the public doesn't want public
Learning.
core in it, is that what you're saying?
I think some members of the
Standards.
public clearly don't want Common Core.
Does that work? Because
Yes.
here they're the Missouri Learning Standards, that's how we adopt them. We developed and reached consensus on ELA strands, clusters, and potential standards. You attach
Comma after clusters.
your Oxford comma,
I'm
I
just thinking
swear.
public comment, like, if people are here after the meeting.
Okay.
There may be times.
I know. Description of remaining steps to completion. Okay, so what we have left to do is develop the vertical progression of standards aligned to the strands, clusters, potential standards. Collaborate with the K5, look at that, K5 ELA WG.
Just fine.
Elon.
They don't know what that means.
To ensure vertical alignment, develop guiding principles, glossary, narrative. Identification of obstacles to overcome, reimbursement of cost to committee members, and the ability to print documents. Other issues, just so we know, as we work to develop the new standards, we are adhering to the following: Missouri Department of Higher Education Curriculum Alignment Initiative, Career Ready Practices, Missouri Show Me Content Standards, National Council of Teachers in English, and we also consulted the following states. Maybe we are also consulting.
Yeah.
Also consulting, because we're probably not finished.
Right.
So that. I missed that one.
But in that first line, as we work to develop these new standards, comma.
Okay,
Yes.
Okay, does that look okay to you?
Are we supposed to maintain confidentiality of the things that we produce here until they go into the state board?
I don't think so. They're
There's a public
Oh, that's true. This is.
it's an open meeting and, yeah.
I just really think though that we ought to put the draft watermark on all of those.
Yeah, I
Things
just don't want
because
anything getting
Otherwise,
out.
people will be sending them around saying, look, here's what they decided.
Yeah.
It needs to be drafted and then
Yeah.
dated,
Yeah,
dates on the bottom.
because if someone goes in there and pulls a document off and.
I mean, they could be
We
sending
really-
something around that we created early that we've already revised and changed and then.
Well,
Yeah.
none of the documents are gonna get out unless we put them out,
The
right?
other thing you have to be aware of.
But it is.
And with Google
Yeah,
Docs.
Any
and
one of us
Sarah-
can add anybody
Yeah.
to that list.
I couldn't figure out.
But
Is that-
one
that's
thing
right.
I like is-
Is that right?
Just go, you click and you make a copy and it's then yours and then you can do whatever you want.
I just want to be clear that what we're doing in
Because she
here.
can print them.
Yeah, I know. I really feel like I need to figure out how to lock that down so we don't keep sharing it.
Until we all vote
Right.
that
Right.
this is our final deal.
I'll say that again.
Agreed.
I don't want anybody going into any of these documents and printing them off and say, oh, here's the standards.
Well,
It's okay to have a look at them, but they need to know that this is just draft.
But probably putting the watermark on like Nancy suggested is a solution to that, cause if you start telling people they can't go
No,
in there.
they can look at them,
Oh,
look
yeah.
at, you just have, they can look at them and do whatever they
Yeah.
want, but you don't want people passing them off as final.
Now, when this is public hearing, I haven't, that's new to me, so do you have to
Should be over
speak,
under
Carrie?
tape.
I hope not.
You just.
I
deliver
think,
it?
Don't you have to give this report?
I think we just submit it.
Do they
No, I
read
thought we
it
just
out
submitted
loud
it
and then
and
the public
then-
comments on
Yeah,
what this
that's
is, or
what I
how is
thought.
that presented? I don't.
I thought I just had to be there in case there were questions.
It's from what is it?
We had an email, let me see if it tells
Well,
us.
I was just curious.
I didn't read that email, so I
Well,
thought
I
I
read one earlier,
She's
just a
got one
second.
If it said.
You got
public
one?
comment,
Well, I don't know why I get some of them and she
What are they
doesn't, and
commenting on?
I don't know. I haven't checked
I
this
don't know,
out.
anything I've gotten I have sent to you. but just a second. Let me find the one that I thought said something about, let me see if I can find it. Please remind your work groups that October 27th is the first public meeting required by the House bill. We need the template provided yesterday filled out by the end of today. That's what you just did. There will be time provided for each group to share with the board the progress of the group. That's it. The last time I asked that question, they really didn't know yet what, and I don't know who determines that.
Oh,
I
I
don't know
got,
if the state
okay, I
board of
got it. I
education.
got an email from Tom Dempsey.
Yeah, I got it too.
Um,
Maybe everybody got it.
No, I didn't get one. Only if he appointed you.
Each work group shall
Okay.
designate one member to write the report. Well, we wrote it together, so we're good. Please direct the report to Dempsey. Title it. Distribute. Okay. Well, we've already decided what we're gonna do. We've already decided together, so I need to distribute it to you for your approval, because you're in the room and you gave me your approval.
Why do you have to distribute it to Dempsey?
Well, no, it says please direct the report to President Pro Tempore Tom Dempsey at Tom Dempsey, blah, 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 on the first of every month. Awesome, I didn't realize we were supposed to be doing that, okay.
November 1st, you'd send him a note saying.
Yeah,
"No
here's our
news."
report. No news, no news, nothing new since, 3 days ago. Okay, so that's just in terms of going forward, I guess.
Is this what we're talking about? Your work group member?
Okay, so it says in terms of kind of,
This is
I
from.
never, that's, I
All right.
heard people talking about that, but I never found it.
it doesn't, that's all it says. It doesn't say anything else other than,
Just the procedure.
yeah, like, I guess what this is saying to me is that we're supposed to be submitting to, it says the work group shall submit monthly reports to the legislature, so, that's what this is, that's different. It also says in there, don't forget, there's also 3 hearings, and that's not what this is about, so. I thought it was, but it's not separate, so. This would be our monthly report and our other report. So, okay, I'm gonna add, is everyone comfortable with me letting you leave and adding draft and then today's date to the bottom of, or do you trust me to do that, or you don't watch me do it?
I'll do it, go.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. So on the Google Docs,
Are you
I
comfortable
like
with
that.
me adding these to the notes?
Review only.
Is that, do I need to
I
check?
don't really care.
Did you type it already?
I have not
I
typed this
did.
because I've been busy
I
with this.
typed that
I will
while you
take a
were doing it.
picture of it also.
I
I
can email
just-
it to you.
I can add it to the notes if you, whatever you desire is. I can take a picture of it and add it to the notes, even I did that previously, and you have it for the record too, okay?
Have a great Thanksgiving, everybody. I'll see you.
That's right, so it's December 1st, is that right?
December second.
Monday, Tuesday, same times, right? Start at 10 on
Oh,
Monday.
December 1st and 2nd, start at 10 on the 1st,
Agenda,
8
we'll
on the,
just keep doing this.
the agenda is,
Yeah,
So I will send you an email, but that's my last week of class, so I'll probably have my class, and I hope I'm here by 1, since you're not starting till 10, and
Well, I know,
then there'll be lunch.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be.
Is it the first?
December 1st is 10 to 5.
You know what would be good then, maybe? I know.
It is 10 to 5, is that what you said?
If we could meet like from 10 to noon or something to try to knock out the speaking and listening in language, eat lunch, and then meet with elementary
And
after
then the
lunch.
second is 8 to 3.
so that we feel better about what we have.
don't we
We
need
would
to
have a
secure a
foundation.
place large enough to accommodate, I mean, I'm assuming
They
their
already have their
room
place.
is the same.
Where are they meeting?
Their room was pretty big, I thought,
Are they on the first floor of this building?
I thought
You're
so.
looking at like 34,
It's a
35
little bit
plus
bigger.
people.
Well, and I guess it probably depends on what they want the nature of that meeting to be, cause if they wanna just,
It's a big room.
if they just wanna have an information exchange, I can do that very easily with Tanya to figure out where they are.
That's true.
And what I was hoping they would do is they would meet in November and then we would have a conversation about where are you, where are we, what do you want the outcome to be, and are you ready to have that conversation? And if you're not, we'll keep chugging along and then you get ready to go. So, I think it's gonna depend on where they are.
You do have this room for December first
Yeah.
and second, it's already been booked, it's really, really hard to get a room, and so this room has been booked. They wanna know if you're giving it up, because people
Right,
need it so badly. Also, that you don't have to worry about your sunshine law, because that's already been posted.
Right.
So if you're going to change where you're meeting for any part of those 2 days, we need to be able to make arrangements for a room somehow, and to get that posted in adequate time.
But if we just go downstairs to meet with them, that should be okay, cause if someone comes looking for us, we'll still be in the building.
The other
Right.
option is to meet with their chairperson and co-chairperson.
As I said, what you may need to do is just
Well, that's what I
find
said.
you meet or something, because I don't know that their room capacity is large enough either to
Okay.
handle both rooms. No.
They just need to know how we're on organizing format.
If you decide you need another room, just let us know so that we can make those arrangements. I would hate to give this room because
Well, we
it's
probably won't know until Gary talks to them in November after they
But
get
anyways,
it.
I don't know if I'll find a room with that much space. We were really glad to go ahead and get this.
Bye, everyone.
Right. In fact, in December, if you choose other dates.
Your name.
Thank you.
Here's get those arrangements right away.
We talked about not
We'll see you in the new
doing
year.
and their potentials with our state being so big. I thought we had talked about this. Sorry.
I'm gonna-
I
I'm
can't
gonna-
believe, I know, I'm like, oh, Thanksgiving.
I know, oh yes, Thanksgiving.
Coming up.
Carrie, can I start taking down these for you?
And I'm sure they're all yellow,
Oh,
Barbara.
you've already typed them. I wanna type
All
them.
yellow.
You what, did you?
You've already typed them all.
Yes. And I took a picture of